There you go. There you go. So we got to keep it light. So. All right, it's 6:30. We'll get started. Thanks for being here, everyone. Mauricio, you want to call the roll?
Commissioner Goldman?
Here.
Commissioner Lama?
Here.
Commissioner Vizcarra?
Here.
Vice Mayor Svechin?
Here.
Mayor Scholl?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. All right, David, you want to lead us in the pledge tonight? Thank you. All could rise, please. Thank you, David. Okay. Our invocation tonight, Father Francis, would you like to come up and give the invocation? I practiced his last name, but he told me to stick with his first name. So, thank you, Father.
Yeah. Loving God, Creator, Sustainer, and Lover of the universe, we thank you for your kindness and gift of one another, and your countless blessings on us all as we recognize and appreciate your sacred presence among us this evening. Renew in us the strength of your presence and the joy to build a community worthy of the human person. We thank you for the mayor and all you have blessed with the honor and ability to bear the responsibilities of this city for the good of all. Graciously grant your blessings on them and the agenda of today's sitting. Let their deliberations be fruitful. Grant them the wisdom to govern amidst the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of welfare and the needs of all, a keen taste for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is right and fitting, ability to work together even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their lives and tasks. Guide us all always with your spirit of justice, love, and peace. Fill this sacred season and time of holidays with an awareness of your presence in our lives. For as your sons and daughters, we are confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father, and welcome to your first meeting. Okay. Has everybody had a chance to review the City Commission meetings from November 21st? If so, could I have a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, could we please roll the order of business? The opening statement, sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for being here tonight. Please turn off or mute any electronic devices to avoid interrupting these proceedings. In all issues that come before the City Commission, we ask that everyone show mutual respect for one another by listening quietly to each person speaking, and that everyone refrain from any clapping, heckling, or verbal outbursts in favor or in opposition to a speaker. Individuals that do not adhere to Chapter 74, Rules of Procedure of the Code, particularly Section 74-21, Decorum, shall be barred from further appearance before the Commission. Individuals who want to speak on any item on the agenda are asked to fill out a public speaker's card and give it to the city clerk before the item is called. Speakers are asked to speak to the issues, make comments concise and to the point, and refrain from making duplicate comments. All speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. If you speak out of turn without permission from the chair and/or do not cease speaking after one warning, you will be escorted out of the chambers.
Okay, there's a few changes to tonight's agenda. Item 10B has additional information. Item 7B has been revised. That's our Art and Public Places ordinance. And item 7C is a proposed new ordinance regarding a condominium registry. That's also been revised. Do I hear a motion to accept the changes to the agenda?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, the agenda's been updated. Okay, our first item of business is a proclamation presented to Central Cab and Vice Mayor Svechin.
Thank you, Mayor.
So I'm calling everybody else mayor.
Yeah.
You notice that?
Yeah.
So,
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by saying that I have a great amount of respect for taxi drivers. It is an incredibly difficult job, both on the body and the mind. And Central Cab has been a huge part of our community as well as the Miami Beach community for over 50 years. Many, if not most, of the Soviet Jews that came in 1979, in the late 70s and the early 80s, took jobs as taxi drivers. Those were the only jobs they could take, despite them not being able to speak English. And the fact that they took these very hard jobs in the 80s, which is very different than today, South Beach, and were able to save money, they then came to Sunny Isles Beach and bought condos. Many of them live still in Winston Towers. My late father was a taxi driver for over 30 years, and he lived in Winston Towers most of those years. So I'm honored to present this proclamation to Mr. Boris Schwartzman, who's sitting in the back, who's the president of Central Cab. He's been working there for, I believe, over 40 years, and he was my father's best friend. I think he was waiting for some drivers as well. But I'd like to read the proclamation. Do we have?
I can read it for you, Vice
You can
Mayor.
read it? Oh, thank you.
Yes, if you just give me 1 second, I'm sorry. Give me 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, it's pulling up. Okay, it's a proclamation of the City of Sunny Isles Beach. Whereas the City of Sunny Isles Beach takes great pride in recognizing individuals and enterprises that serve to enrich the fabric of our community, and whereas Central Cab, a taxi service company, has been operating since 1950, and whereas the company has operated in the City of Sunny Isles Beach for over 65 years, and whereas the company has consistently operated under the highest standards, abiding by all traffic laws and regulations, and whereas the company and its vehicles are regulated by Miami-Dade County's Passenger Transportation Regulatory Division, and whereas the company's drivers are approved to operate taxis by PTRD, undergoing extensive background checks and educational courses necessary to obtain a chauffeur's registration license, and whereas the City of Sunny Isles Beach wishes to recognize Central Cab for their dedication and commitment to the betterment of our community. Now therefore do I, Mayor, on behalf of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim Thursday, December 19th, 2019 as Central Cab Day in the City of Sunny Isles Beach.
Thank you. Yeah, please take a picture. Please picture.
Excellent. Oh, she's here? Okay. Okay. Where is Zara? Zara, where are you?
She's right there.
Where are you? Do you want to come up?
She's by Lynn.
Where is she? Oh, there she is. Okay. Do you want to come up? Come on up. So it's kind of our tradition. We have the student body president from the K through 8 school. Come on up and,
Yeah.
please, come on, pull up a chair. Okay. Welcome. Welcome, have a seat. So, okay, we have no zoning hearings tonight, but we have some ordinances for first reading. So we're going to move on to item 7A. Mauricio?
7A is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 194 entitled Nuisance of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Sunny Isles Beach to amend Section 194-2 to include the definition of nuisance as the unauthorized feeding of animals on publicly owned property, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date. And this is first reading.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the commission, the city manager and I met with representatives of the CAT program, and we've made some changes to this ordinance. Essentially, what this ordinance does is it establishes penalties for the unauthorized feeding of animals, and then further, it allows the city manager to designate authorized feeding for animals in the city. So, in our discussions with Commissioner Viscara, she suggested some friendly amendments that we were okay with, which is in the third whereas clause, she would like added, in addition to the word unhealthy and unsanitary, the word unsafe. And then towards the end, detriment of the citizen and animals and visitors to the city. And then in the fourth whereas clause, so that the city may properly regulate and attempt to curb some unauthorized feeding. So the purpose of the ordinance is essentially to establish some safe zones for feeding of animals throughout the city.
So it's not to prohibit feeding, it's to establish safe zones for the feeding.
Correct.
Correct, okay, got it. We have a public speaker, so I'm going to open the public speaker hearing. Keith Oliver?
Good evening, Keith Oliver, Tropicana Condominium, 15645 Collins Avenue. And thank you for bringing this up tonight. As you probably recall, I made a statement at the last meeting, pretty detailed, I won't go over that. But what I could just say is that as far as the feeding goes, that's wonderful for them. The biggest problem that I see, overfeeding. Overfeeding is what brings in the bugs, and then the leftover food, and it gets wet, and that's the biggest problem I see. So I don't know if that is part of the ordinance, that someone will monitor this and they'll keep it clean or watch the water. Again, my solution was to have our city manager contact Commissioner Hayman with the possibility of creating a feeding station in Hallover Park, where a lot of those cats in Hallover Park come into my property constantly, and if they were kept there and kept, the food was monitored, and it would be clean, it would be safer, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Okay, public hearing's closed. Comments from the dais?
I have a question. So, Stan, the areas where there's going to be official feeding stations, those are going to be manned by volunteers, correct? Or no? How are they going, to Keith's point, how are we going to make sure that it's clean?
I've met with Helena Forbes, who is the manager of the program. We are going to meet with the people that want to participate in the program, and we will speak to the items that Mr. Oliver mentioned, as well as establish the best areas to feed and monitor. So you must be part of the program in order to feed, to help us regulate it a little bit better.
And are we going to have some sort of educational program to let people know this?
Yes, we're going to start off with education, and we're going to do a newsletter article and also post some items on the website.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Stan or comments? No? Okay, yeah, I have no comments. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I think, I think it's a good ordinance, bottom line. And I think the most important thing was that, it was reconciled with the folks that advocate, on behalf of the cats. So I think, that was important as well, because that is a very vigorous group of people. So I applaud passionate group of people. They're passionate and vigorous. So I applaud staff for, getting that worked out. And I know we took time on this ordinance to make sure that we got it right, and I appreciate it. So with that, I will take a motion.
So moved.
Hear a second? All in, voice vote. Mauricio, it's ordinance.
Commissioner Viscara,
Yes.
Commissioner Lama, Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Svechen,
Yes.
Mayor Scholl.
Yes.
The ordinance passes on first reading. Second reading will be in January.
Excellent, thank you. Good work, staff. Item 7B.
7B is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 104 of the Code entitled Art in Public Places to provide the city manager with instructions regarding retroactive funding of the Public Art Fund for municipal construction projects as originally contemplated, providing for a more detailed explanation of the Public Art Trust Fund, requiring the city manager and the Public Arts Advisory Committee to recommend to the City Commission a yearly budget for public art funding, providing for a repealer, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for an effective date, and this is first reading.
Ms. Danheiser.
Mr. Mayor, everybody, happy holidays. I know that I sent you a rather large packet with a lot of materials. I do not intend to reiterate them here, but just in brief, to say that the PAC that you appointed a couple of years ago, that you're going to hopefully reappoint tonight, has been working hard to implement the cultural master plan. There are a number of projects that have occurred in relation to that, most of which have not yet risen to the level of the commission because we have studiously avoided spending much money on this until now. I think we're kicking into higher gear with the possibility of securing a rather large piece of art, with the possibility of securing a national arts festival that we're in negotiations with, and in the course of looking for funds to now carry out some of these projects. I noticed that we did in our original ordinance have a provision that required the municipality to fund 1.5% of construction projects from construction costs. I don't think that was started in 2005. We had not done that. I'm requesting in this ordinance the ability to retroactively fund that from whatever source the manager and you deem appropriate. And the second request is to, on an annual basis, consider a proposed budget to fund the program, and we'll bring you very specific projects that we're looking for that funding for.
Excellent, thank you, Lynn. There's no public comment on this, so any questions for Lynn? Alex, do you have any questions? You want to start? Dana? No? No? Jennifer? No? Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to, acknowledge this group. They've worked very hard. They're very focused on what they're doing. Thank you for being here today. And thank you, Lynn, for everything that you've done on this. This is going to put us really on the map.
Yeah, so I just to reiterate, I think the PAC, I think it was an experiment, because we had never really done anything like that before. I think the group of people that have worked at the PAC have done an extraordinary job. I've sat in a couple of meetings, and the level of expertise that's brought to the table, I think and I think it shows. I think we're getting, it's not kind of left up to the provider of the art anymore. I think that it's a pretty reasonable negotiation between the PAC and the developers. So I'm certainly in favor of kind of expanding the role of the PAC by getting them some additional monies. And ironically, this was contemplated years ago, but I don't think the prior administrations paid a lot of attention and funded it. So I've got no issue with the idea of retroactive funding and then looking for some annual funding so the PAC can basically maybe broaden their mission a little bit, other than wrestling with every project that comes along. So again, I applaud the PAC. I applaud Lynn. Your work on this, and I think the community's better, because of it. So with that, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
For your second,
Second.
Mauricio.
Commissioner Lama,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Svechen,
Yes.
Commissioner Viscara,
Yes.
Mayor Scholl.
Yes.
The ordinance passes on first reading. Second reading will be in January.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Item 7C.
Excuse me. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach creating a new chapter of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Sunny Isles Beach entitled Condominium Registry to require condominium associations within the City of Sunny Isles Beach to provide certain contact information, physical information, and other documentation regarding such condominiums to the City of Sunny Isles Beach, providing the applicability, providing for a condominium registry in the City of Sunny Isles Beach, providing for the availability of an electronic condominium registry, contact information, physical information, and other documentation regarding condominiums in the City of Sunny Isles Beach, providing for conflicts, providing for repealer, providing for severability, providing for inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date. And this is first reading.
Okay. Dana, before I give you the floor, just for clarity, just so everybody understands, any commissioner can propose an ordinance and basically bring it to the city attorney, and it goes on the agenda. So I think a lot of times we socialize these sometimes through discussion or whatever. Sometimes if the commissioner says, I want it on the agenda, it's Commissioner Goldman's right to put her ordinance on the agenda. So I got a lot of blowback this week by folks saying, how could the city be behind this or what have you. The fact is that it's Commissioner Goldman's proposal, and we're gonna talk about it tonight. I think what we recognize is, as these issues get a little bit more contentious from time to time, what we might do is we might consider changing our policy to where if we have an ordinance that's going to get put before us that's suggested by a commissioner, usually they're driven by the staff, but if it's suggested by a commissioner, we have it as a discussion item in a meeting. It gets really, it gets kind of hashed out as a discussion item, any direction to staff for clarification or any public input, and then when it becomes an ordinance, it doesn't come up cold, so like this one did. So I just want to, not to take your thunder, I just wanted to be clear because I got a lot of feedback, how could you do this, that kind of thing. So anyway,
Okay,
Commissioner Goldman, you have the floor.
Well, I think a lot of people in this room know how passionate I am about condominium issues and condominium reform and advocating for the rights of the residents. And at its core, this is really a pro-resident type ordinance. But before we get started, I really want to thank our city attorney, Ed Dion, for helping in drafting it. There are some important provisions that we had to take out, such as the city having certified arbitrators to conduct arbitration hearings locally. However, this will hopefully be the subject of a future resolution at the next commission meeting, because I think that's a very important point, and that was a part that was included but then taken out. But hopefully that will be the subject of a resolution in the future. So the problem that residents face in condominiums here in our city and also statewide is that not all records and information about our condominiums are readily available and accessible. In particular, there are website mandates under the new legislation, but they only extend to condominium associations that have 150 or more units. So there's a provision in this ordinance that allows for the immediate publication of records and information of condominiums that have the threshold of over 50 units. So that website posting requirement again only goes to units that are 150 or more. And while there have been reforms of late for records and information, there's certainly these issues linger, and there are still problems in accessibility and enforcement issues where unit owners, they come to me and they say, we can't get the records, or how do we do it, or so forth. So the whole thrust of this ordinance is to make physical information, contact information, basic information about the condominium, and also certain records like the governing documents immediately accessible, transparent, and available for review in a central repository in a central location, and that's available for all. Now, these records are not privileged or private. These are state mandated records. So the financial reports or the latest budget that's something that's required by state law, and to the extent it's required by state law, it should be available, and it's immediately available to these condominium associations, and it should be published and available for review. So it's not going to be that difficult to comply on the association side. It's just going to be that much better to have a central repository and have that information available for view by all. I'd like to welcome, of course, some input as to how to make this ordinance even stronger and better, and I'll be happy to work with the city, with interested parties and the staff between now and the second reading to make this an even better ordinance than it is today. The couple of provisions that that should be included, but I'm hoping that we can get through that, and that my colleagues can understand the thrust of this, and the objective is really to make information available and accessible to all. So this is really about the residents. This is about the rights to access amongst all the residents. And that's really what this is all about. So a couple of features of this ordinance. So basically, basic contact information, the location, the email information, the contact information, the license number of the community association manager, the governing documents of the associations that have 50 or more units, the latest financial statement or financial report as required by the Condominium Act, the latest budget, the status of the 40-year recertification. These are just some of the basic parking spaces, community association management information. There's just a central location available for review, something that the city can easily collect and adapt, and that to me is an effort towards transparency and accessibility, and it's really about having this information available to all. So I'm hoping that my colleagues can stand with me and really advocate for the residents and having this information available. And I did attach a memorandum that came out very late this afternoon, so I hope you have an opportunity to review that as well.
Yeah, I actually didn't, but okay.
Okay, so there's a memorandum that's
see
been
it.
circulating, so it should be available to publish about really the spirit and the thrust of this particular ordinance. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to open it for public hearing. We have a guest from Hollandale, Commissioner Annabelle Lima Taub. Commissioner? My mom lives in Hollandale. Ah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, City Clerk, City Manager, City Attorney. I've heard some great things about you from our City Attorney as well as our Mayor. I'd like to thank Commissioner Goldman for this ordinance, and I wanted to share a story with you. First of all, let me say that I think that Chapter 718 has a lot of flaws, needs to be redressed, but a repository which encourages compliance is very much necessary. So in our city, we have many seniors that live on a fixed income. To me, they're a vulnerable population in our city. But you also have this in Sunny Isles. So not everyone lives in the multi-million-dollar apartments. The reputation is that most people living here are wealthy, but we do have seniors here that
Except
that
the
live on
people
fixed
sitting on the commission, but that's, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Of course. And I understand that sometimes there's personalities, people don't like their board members, but there are egregious issues, and we are looking to you, to Sunny Isles, for an example, and you can set this on the map. So as a government body, we have a responsibility to protect our residents, our citizens, but also protect their property. So I'll give you an example. In one of the buildings, there are clear issues of fraud, but Chapter 718 does not allow for the police officers, their hands are tied because there isn't criminal activity. So I'll give you an example. Residents have asked to see financials, put in a formal request. The president of the association, what she did was she granted them a request, but before that she said you have 1 hour. When they entered the room where these records are at, she took the files and scattered the papers all over. So they had 1 hour to look for the information that they wanted, but how can you reconcile which page goes with which, from what year, from what month? Another example is for realtors, and you have a lot of realtors in in Sunny Isles, when they ask for, an estoppel letter, when they ask for our financials, we have one president of an association that serves as a realtor and the president of the association. So what she'll do is she'll deny buyers, and she will delay the paperwork trail that is requested of her. Then the people that are senior citizens living on fixed incomes then face having to, sell their property, but they don't have anyone. Then she will find buyers to sell it at a fraction of the price. So really what I'm saying, this could be, you can catapult and you can be on the map. Sunny Isles Beach can be on the map of protecting its residents, protecting their properties. Some kind of a repository is absolutely helpful, so that you can help mitigate and work on behalf of the residents that really, really need your help. Many residents in Sunny Isles, as in Hallandale Beach, English is not their first language. They're intimidated. So this could be something where it encourages compliance. So I hope that you will support Commissioner Goldman. Thank you very much for being a champion for this, but I think collectively you can all be champions for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Maxim Gura?
I'm sorry, but
Shh, Numi, shh. Numi, you don't have the floor?
Maxim Gura,
Your name and address for the
the
record.
Pinnacle Condominium, 17555 Collins Avenue. Sorry to face you the other way around.
No, you're
And,
talking to the mic because you
yes,
got to get
obviously.
recorded. Thank you.
I would like to state this. I reviewed this thing, and with all due respect to Commissioner Goldman and to Commissioner from our neighboring Hallandale Beach, I'm not sure if we want to be the champions. Why don't you be the champions? And I explain to you why. Given the 3-minute constraint, even though I made detailed notes, and I don't believe that people in the audience actually had an opportunity to read this proposed ordinance, which is 4 pages. So that will be difficult for them if I make my comments. I would have to read and then read my comments, read the sections, and then read my comments. It may take a little bit more than 3 minutes. Unless you grant me exemption and exception, I'll do it. If not,
Just summarize.
okay.
Just tell us
I'll
what you think.
summarize it
Sure.
in words of my fellow resident from the Pinnacle, who happens to be an experienced real estate attorney from Canada. He's not licensed here, so this is his personal opinion, but obviously it has a professional sort of flavor to it. So that's what the gentleman writes. I've done a quick review of the proposed ordinance. Very sorry, just something, the text came in and blocked. I apologize. Yeah, okay.
You got a bunch of young people here who can help you with the technology.
That's all right, I'm okay with the technology, it's just
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
read the mail and then the text comes through,
All
it
right.
covers the text, so
Yeah,
with
go
your
ahead.
permission. I've done a quick review of the proposed ordinance, and it's not apparent that the enactment by Florida legislature of statute 718.111 to make associations more transparent and accountable grants the city commission, and not only commission, I understand that mayor's office and some other entities are involved, carte blanche to establish a condominium registry to forcibly gather private and confidential information, which will obviously become available because anything that city gets is in public domain, for the commercial benefit of competing developers, condominium properties, building associations, and other third parties. Relations between co-owners and the association are governed by the declaration of co-ownership, and disputes must be settled pursuant to the provisions thereof. In the event of irreconcilable disputes, all parties may exercise their rights and recourses before a court of law and not a city commission. Criminal fraud issues is a matter for process by the police. So basically, in short, associations are private entities. Information must be available to members of association. Whatever the county requires is available. Whomever wants to get it from the county is public record. As far as 40-year certification, city manager monitors this process. It doesn't have to be added to this ordinance. It has nothing to do with it. As far as putting budget, putting financial statement out in public domain, it's like suggesting that you would be willing to put your personal tax return and your bank statements on a city website. I'm not sure you would agree to that. So being a member of the board in one association, being a vice president and the president of the association at the other association, I would say that it will also put an undue burden on the staff of the association to comply with the requirements and supply you with this information. And you will be looking at adding a few extra floors to this building to house the department who is going to process all this information. So, responding to what the other commissioner just said, I will say this. Two examples that the commissioner gave are just very individual cases, and it's not good reason enough to generalize and penalize everyone. We have our right, our respect of privacy, our respect to freedom, and I don't think that city is in any way should become a condominium police. What I do think is this: if city of Hallandale from different county and city of Sunny Isles Beach and other neighboring cities feel that 718 is not perfect, and I happen to think the same way, then they have to lobby the state legislature to improve it. We don't need to try to do something here. And also, from the legal standpoint, which I'm not an attorney, but I doubt that anything that your attorney wrote will supersede the state law. So severability here will make this document null and void. I suggest that you don't even consider this to be the first hearing. You just table it and either give up the idea to ever discuss it again or change it so drastically that it will be satisfactory to the residents of this city. And what I will contribute to oppose this process, I will try to gather fellow association presidents and members and create association council of the city of Sunny Isles Beach and oppose to it and do it in all ways that are granted by the laws of this country. This seems to me very similar to project of building a boardwalk in Sunny Isles Beach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. Okay. Felix? Is this holiday gift? Yeah. It's poetry? No? Seasonal poetry?
First of all, my name is Felix Kisner. I live on 250 174th Street in Sunny Isles Beach, apartment 1904. I am secretary of the board, as well as a condo owner and an investor. So, as we say, sunshine is the best disinfectant, they say out there. And as a secretary, I was, for example, reelected with 85% approval rating. I guess the others didn't vote for me because I'm not a Republican. But anyway, I must be doing something right in my condominium units. And Commissioner Goldman, you are raising very difficult issues. And I have to commend you because what you're addressing, others did not have the guts to do. But that's not the first time you're doing it. So I have to commend you because this now brings up a discussion. However, in this case, with scenario, I understand that this may be well-intentioned legislation. However, may I suggest that the solution made are somewhere misdirected? And I point out the following to you. First, there are two types of ways in which disputes are resolved in litigation issues. Action through the courts, which generally do not pertain to the FS 718-111 concerns, and B, mandatory non-binding arbitration to quickly and inexpensively, or so this legislation has held under Florida Statute 718-1255. Indeed, the Division of Condominiums is supposed to quickly investigate and enforce these issues as to failure to report. But we know that's not working out as it should be. For some unknown reason, the proposed ordinance only pertains to condominiums, Florida Statute 17, but not the cooperatives, Florida Statute 719, or homeowners association, Florida Statute 720. This is strange since the disclosure obligation and rules are very similar under the statute. The registry in question does not merely require the archiving of one association records, rather the residents of one association may now have complete and free access to another association's internal records. Now, this may be a good thing, because sometimes people want to see how much, if you take apples with apples, how much Winston Towers 200 paying for what versus Winston Town 100 or others. So this is debatable. There is no coordination between whoever will run this registry and the Division of Condominiums. Is there an argument that since the condominiums are not required to provide these records to the state, as far as I know, the ordinances conflict with the state statute and is improper? Did anyone check on this? Enforcement is now by civil infraction. Against whom? Does this mean that the following happens? Let's say an X is a unit owner of condominium 111. And an A condominium A does not provide the required registry documents. As a result, a civil penalty is assessed against condominium A. As a consequence, X must now pay an increased assessment to cover this civil penalty for an association non-filing. Of course, this will be an automatic fundraiser for the city and automatically assessed. However, who ultimately pays? So I have a simplistic solution for you. What happens if instead a registry is adopted which requires the community manager to provide an affidavit in writing filed under threat of discipline on his or her license? The affidavit by the manager swears under an oath that all of the items required under Section 4 are present and current for the association and lists at best the contact information. This, of course, now subjects the manager to potential criminal penalty and avoids an additional expense being imposed on the association itself. There are always unit owners who will claim that their association is not doing the correct thing. However, there are hardworking directors and associations that endeavor to do so. If the problem is severe enough, the unit owner may file the complaint form with the Division of Condominiums, who investigate the matters for free. If the unit owner finds the conduct severe enough, they elect a new board. Question, isn't this overkill to what an inexpensive and just as powerful solution can be obtaining by requiring the compliance affidavit above? Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Okay. Last public speaker, Ella Kalish.
Hi, happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Ella.
So I timed this. It's 3 minutes and 48 seconds without commas or breaths, and I'm
Okay.
going to hopefully be able to take both with your indulgence. Like a cancer, the fraud and abuse by condo boards and property managers and the attorneys that made their money off defending these bad actors through intimidation and threats of legal action became so egregious, and the condo owner's voice of outrage so loud that in 2017, the Florida State Legislature finally met, crafted, and passed the Condominium Act 718, governing every condominium created and existing in the state of Florida. In part, it sets forth law that sets accountability standards for boards and avenues of redress for their violations, but most importantly, it made provisions that allowed condo owners the right to call for an ADR, an alternative dispute resolution, including but not limited to non-binding arbitration resolution programs within their own city at the local level. The legislative reasoning for giving condo owners this arbitration power is clearly outlined in Chapter 718, Section 1255 of the Condominium Condominium Act, and it reads in part, the legislature finds that unit owners are frequently at a disadvantage when litigating against an association, specifically a condominium association with its statutory assessment authority is often more able to bear the costs and expenses of litigation than the unit owner, who must rely on his or her own financial resources to satisfy the costs of litigation against the association. Further, the legislature also finds that alternative dispute resolution reduces court dockets and trials, offering a more efficient, cost-effective option to court litigation. And the high cost and significant delay of circuit court litigation faced by the unit owners is addressed. But most importantly, the Division of Department of Business and Professional Regulations may certify attorneys who are not employed by the division to act as local arbitrators to conduct arbitration hearings as a means to settle disputes between condo owners, HOA boards, and property managers. Sunny Isles Beach has an opportunity to make history as the first city in Florida to petition for use of this statute and provide what is our legal rights as condo owners for the protection and this service. As the founder of the Sunny Isles Beach Condo Owners Unity Coalition, whose primary mission it is to bring arbitration to our city, I have and continue to strongly advocate through discussions with our mayor, our city manager, and our commissioners to start the process with the Division of Business and Professional Regulations Division of Arbitration to bring legal arbitrators to our city. Yet, no formal action has been undertaken to date. I'm told that everyone is for it, it's a wonderful idea, and yet here is an ordinance that deliberately omits this action. Why is that? I have heard from condominium attorneys and from our own commissioner, Dana Goldman, that it is expected that by spring or summer of 2020, the Florida Association of Condominium Attorneys are going to lobby our state legislature to repeal the right for arbitration, to cut it out of the Condominium Act. They have been trying to get arbitration repealed since the act was passed in 2017, and every year they failed. So I believe the call for arbitration is omitted from this ordinance because our elected officials and our city leadership staff may have decided to take a wait-and-see posture, hoping that arbitration will be repealed and it will be off their desks and they won't have to deal with it. I contend that this is not a wait-and-see posture our city should be taking. The legislature reasoning for arbitration in 718 is clearly addressed, and it will not be repealed as it is a central tenet to the Condominium Act. The time to act on behalf of the condo owners that pay the salaries of our city leadership and that elect our representatives to defend our interests through our taxes has come home to roost and is due and payable now. This condominium registry ordinance was written and presented by Dana Goldman because she understands that condo board and property manager abuses and the call for local arbitration will be a key kitchen table issue among voters in November, and a win on this ordinance would be a big win for her. But as it reads, this is a nothing burger. I read this ordinance. I contacted Dana immediately to relay my concerns and to present 4 amendments that would genuinely make a difference to the condo owners of this great city, but she denied to make those changes on the most important amendments. Right now, much of what is in the ordinance is already provided and available to us as condo owners through our condo association as mandated by 718. So they are already compliant. So my question is, with regards to this ordinance, where's the beef? The 2 most important amendments submitted to the Commissioner Dana were that 1, the city shall petition the DBPR Arbitration Division to certify independent arbitration attorneys that meet the criteria laid out in 718-1255, and as is our right. Omission of this, which was the origination argument that even led to the idea that Dana had for even crafting an ordinance. The name, mailing address, telephone number, email address, and state-issued license that she mentioned for the management firm, we wanted to include any current or historical violations under CAM. This is public information, by the way. These are final adjudications of violations by the Department of Business and Professional Regulations following an investigation, and violation is issued and registered. Bad property managers go from one condominium to another, and they're hired by boards that need easier access to know if the property manager has a violation history. Instead of incorporating these amendments, we've instead left out of this ordinance what appears to be, in closing, instead of incorporating these amendments, we've instead been left out with we've instead been left with an ordinance that appears to be a feeble attempt to placate our residents into a false sense that something is being done, while in reality, nothing is being done. I've been told that our honorable city attorney, Mr. Edward Dion, by our Commissioner Dana, was that we need, instead of modifying and amending this particular ordinance to include what I've gone over, that we need to present this as a resolution that can be either voted up or down or be tabled for discussion. Well, the legislature already had their discussions. They already gave their reasons. They already passed their law that gives the condo owners the power of local arbitration. That discussion has been had and it's over. I call on the commission here tonight to vote to add these amendments to this ordinance and pass it. Otherwise, I decline. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ella.
Ed, can we discuss a little bit this arbitration or this?
Let's close the public hearing. Okay, let's close. So the public hearing's closed.
Mayor, before we close,
Yes.
I just need to read into the record that we received an opposition letter from David Matten, who is the president of the Ocean Reserve Condominium.
Right, I see it. I think we all have a copy of it. Good. And then we've got, Felix read his statement, so Felix sent out his statement as well. But if you can put Felix's statement in the record as well, that would be great. Okay, public hearing's closed. So, Dana, you can go first.
Sure. So, Ed, we had this discussion, and of course, I strongly support and advocate a resolution to the effect, and I actually have it in writing, that the city will petition the Division of Florida Condominiums, Timeshares, and Mobile Homes of the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, as referenced in Section 718-1255 Florida statutes, to certify attorneys to act as arbitrators to conduct the arbitration hearings provided by Chapter 718 Florida statutes locally in the city. So I'm in complete 100% agreement. I think it's a very valid issue from a technical aspect. Ed indicated to me that this was not right in the ordinance, but if the commission agreed, which I proposed that we put out or proffer or some sort of resolution to this effect, I'd like to see if the commission would agree to that, because I certainly champion that thought. I think it's an excellent idea, and it's very important, and I'd love to see the city be a part of that initiative to allow arbitration to be conducted here. So, Ed, I don't know if you want to address that or talk about that.
No, Mayor, may I? Thank you. Commissioner Golden and I discussed this last evening, and I certainly have no problem with the commission sending a letter or adopting a resolution to DBPR, the Division of Condominiums, requesting that they do what she's just read. However, this is just inappropriate in an ordinance. It just doesn't belong in an ordinance, because what we're doing is we're setting a law, and this is not something that we'd ordinarily do for anything like this. We've done this before in support of legislation that's pending in front of the legislature, and it would certainly be appropriate for this commission to adopt a resolution to the effect that Commissioner Golden just stated. But my only objection was putting it in the ordinance.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Okay, Ella, come on. Tonight you got to behave, okay? Okay, Chris?
Mr. Mayor, I just would like to point out something that we've done. This has been, discussed. This has been discussed for a couple of weeks now, as far as the issue of getting the state department that handles this to spend time down in our city for us. The mayor had come back to me a little over a week ago, or maybe more, about seeing if we can get services from this agency of the state to come here to deal with the arbitration and the ombudsman part, to help people with any claims or anything that they want to make to the state of problems with their condos. And we had contacted and I'm sorry I haven't shared this sooner because we've just been so busy, but we first reached out to our lobbyist, and we reached out to Senator Pizzo, who about a week ago sent a letter up to the secretary of the department asking to bring these services that Ella's talking about and what the mayor had talked to us about down here to our city. So we haven't looked away on this. And frankly, we just did this routinely, not thinking that we need an ordinance or a resolution to solicit the state to see if we can bring their services down to us. Certainly at our expense to bring them down, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, or what have you. We do this with the Miami-Dade Fire Department. They're pretty far away from here, and now we have them in here half a day a week to deal with people coming for building permits that require that. It's the same concept. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Ella, hold on. Ella, hold on. Just hold on. Okay. Okay, hold on one second, but he's not talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
No, that's.
Okay, hold on one second. So just to be clear, just to give credit where credit's due, I met with Ella. So Ella has a condominium advocacy group, her and Warren Stamm, and it's a citizens group. And Max, I would tell you that if you have some folks at your organization, I would join their group because you all are going in the same direction. Yeah, and so Ella and I met a couple of times, and then I met with Warren again, with Ellen Warren, and they brought up the idea of basically bringing the state ombudsman down. Hold on, Ella. So first we talked about bringing the state ombudsman down on a regular basis. So in other words, folks could come into the city, they could schedule a time when they could air their grievance with the ombudsman, and then the ombudsman would be here on a regular basis. What I'm hearing today is an expansion of that, which is hiring a lawyer as an arbitrator and potentially having expansion of that. But this is where we started, because our first conversation was around this. But again, I was glad to do it because it's coming from a citizens group. A citizens group brought it forth. A citizens group, brought it forth. And so this was the genesis of that issue. So before I speak on Commissioner Goldman's issue.
It's really important that I address
Ella,
this because
Ella,
I would like to
me.
address it. It's important.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
directly related. There is no ombudsman. I spoke to Mac Rainey. He is the head of arbitration in Tallahassee.
Got it.
What happens is they do things either by video conferencing, which they don't have down pat yet, or you have to go through to Tallahassee and they review the documents. In 718, as I stated here, you can petition on your attorney that meets the criteria of 718. It's laid out in there, by the way, exactly what background the attorney has to have in order to do local arbitration within the city. You petition. Once you've identified an attorney or two attorneys that you want to be considered to hold the local arbitration here in our city once a month, of course we pay for it, and but they will not send someone from
I'm clear.
Tallahassee. Just
Now,
FYI.
Ella, when you and I sat down last time, what did I say? I said the staff has to go through their own process to understand what we can and can't do.
Okay, but I did that.
No, I understand.
I've been doing
appreciate
it like I'm exhausted.
I appreciate it, but my point is that the staff can't act on your
Okay, but
opinion.
I'm
I
giving our
understand.
city
I
manager
got
and
it.
you.
I got it.
Mac Rainey is
Right.
the head of arbitration.
Right.
I spoke
Understood.
also with the chief counsel, legal counsel
Mhm.
for DBPR. We had our
Right.
conference call with each. They were so great. And they
Mhm.
said, Ella, they can't give legal advice. They can't do that. But they led us through
Right.
the process of what we can and what we can't do. And it has to start with the petition, with the attorneys that meet the qualifications as outlined in 718. There is no pathway yet
Right.
in executing it, and that's what we're going to depend on our fantastic, city attorney, Edward Dion.
So again, but to be clear, the staff's working on it. And,
Yeah, I
in
just
your
wanted to
comments,
help you
in your
because that
comments,
was misinformation.
in your comments, you just said it all fell on deaf ears. It didn't fall on deaf ears. The
I
staff's-
never said it fell on deaf
But I'm
ears.
just saying the staff's working on it, just to be clear.
I said-
So, but the staff's got to work through their process to understand it. And again, a lot like Commissioner Goldman's ordinance, there's a lot of detail here. There's a lot of detail that we have to understand and that we have to be clear and we have to set up processes for and look at it. But we're getting there. I think we're getting there. And the fact is,
So when should I
calls have been
circle
made.
back with you?
Calls have been made. The staff's going to contact you when they have clarity, okay? But the fact is, it's in the hopper. That's the good news. The staff.
Okay, well, so now I've given you some information I
Yeah,
think was useful,
good.
right?
Good.
Okay,
It was
good.
useful. Thank you,
Thank
Ella.
you.
Thank you. Okay.
So for me, what's interesting is when I read the tea leaves here, the objections that I see are really from the board, the association board members, not the association residents, right? And this is really a pro-resident, pro-unit owner, pro-people ordinance. This is not about the association president saying, oh, it's burdensome, or oh, the information is confidential, because that information is not confidential. This is all, state mandated, publicly available information. This is about serving the public interest and serving the interests of the residents and building transparency and accessibility for the benefit of all of our residents, not about whether it's going to take a little time to produce this information, which is obviously very readily available. And that's the whole purpose of this,
Got it.
really.
Thank you.
Pro-resident.
Thank you. See, Ella? See? You see what you do to me? So,
She set the precedent.
Max,
I
but we're
apologize.
not here to, no,
Commissioner,
Max,
please.
Max.
Yes, sir.
Max. Honestly, we don't debate the commission after the public hearings close. It's
Okay,
just,
not a
otherwise
problem.
I have mayhem, okay?
Except the board
But I
is
appreciate
elected by the residents.
Absolutely.
Don't put the
Yeah.
board in a position. I'm also a resident.
We understand.
And I'm actually no longer a board member.
Yeah,
if you wanna-
thank you. Okay. Alex?
Well, what I see here, there's a lot of information flying around, and I think this warrants a workshop or some sort of discussion. There's a lot of items that, have been presented today that are not part of the resolution, that ordinance you're proposing. The DBPR, okay, a lot of the information, the registry, a lot of those documents are already required by the DBPR. Whether, you need to have a website because you're a condo building of 150 plus units, or if you're a condo unit of 50 units, that has, by state law, it is required by that association to give the access to residents. We all been at the receiving end of a bad board. I've gone through a couple, 2 or 3 myself, and it's not pretty. It really is not pretty because it's very frustrating. The ultimate goal here is to make sure that they comply, that these associations comply. The DBPR is already there to ensure that. Are they doing a good job, yes or no? I would say no. They're not doing a great job at it. But maybe we could talk to them and see how we could bring down some people from the DBPR, an ombudsman here, or from the ombudsman's office, and see how we could work together. And definitely, this warrants another discussion or a workshop, and see how we could come up with an ordinance or make this one, something that we could all agree on. Because I see concerns from both sides. I was also a board member, and I see some privacy issues here, workload, thus, increasing costs for a board and increasing costs for the unit owners there. Ella, you mentioned the DBPR does provide for arbitration, so I think we need to work with them, and if we need to front some of the cost of having a DBPR representative here, then...
No, No, it's semantics. He's saying the same thing. It's semantics, though. We understand that we got to get a lawyer and get the lawyer certified. I get it, but he's really saying the same thing. So, because all this is, remember, this is getting introduced in the last 10 minutes, so let's give him a break.
So, yeah, I think that we should table this and have workshops and have discussions. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. All right. Jennifer.
I too have experience in.
Jennifer, get the mic.
I always do that. I'm
sorry, but you know.
I also
people
have
wanna hear you.
experience in the condo board world, and I can tell you that years ago, in my building, there was an awful situation, and a group of very strong-willed people took up the fight, and eventually I got involved and I helped them. I joined the board and we did the whole thing with the DBPR and the process, everything, right? Mediations, you name it. We went through it. The process took so long that by the time the DBPR got back to us, we had already taken over the board and we were basically suing ourselves and had fixed the problem. So there's clearly some serious shortcomings with the current laws, but I don't see that. I think that this is a well-intentioned effort, but I don't see how it really fixes the bad actors, because the bad actors, if they are the managers or the boards, ultimately the ones who end up paying for those taxes are going to be those owners anyway. I'd like to see us focus more on strengthening, facilitating, streamlining the state process, whether through the legislative piece or in some other more creative way, before we insert the city into it. Because there is, like a lot of you have said, the redundancies with the state laws. There's a lot of amendments that I'm hearing for the first time. These are highly technical legal things, and I always say, like, you don't know what you don't know. So we may mean well, but you don't know what ramifications certain language or certain acts may have when you run up against a state law, or if in the end we're just going to be spinning our wheels and we're going to do a lot of talking for not a whole lot. Ultimately, the power is in the owners. If you don't like your board, you have to organize, and it's hard, and it's unthanked work. It's difficult, but that's the best way, at least in my experience, to protect your investment. And if you're an honest person, you don't have to have perfect English, you don't have to be an accountant. Be an honest person willing to roll up your sleeves and have another couple of honest people get on the board, gradually push out those bad actors. Because again, for us, that was how it worked. And in the past, however many years, our building has run very well. We've painted the building, replaced, done all kinds of things without special assessments, renegotiating things. And then when we don't have a good manager, we get rid of them. So that's really where the power is. And I know it's intimidating, and it is not fun, and it is not thanked. But it's at least, you don't have to be depending on any government entity to solve your problem, including the DBPR, because it is very flawed. So I would also encourage exploring other options before we bring the city into the middle of this, which is really a state issue. Thank you, Jennifer. Vice Mayor.
I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Viscara and Alex said. I have a lot of problems with the way this ordinance is written, and Ella stole my thunder, so thanks. I respectfully disagree. I received that that we are getting opposition only from boards, because I received many phone calls and emails from people that, because of the holidays, were not able to come. And I think that, with the exception of the mayor, all of us are condo owners. So this is important to everybody. My biggest concern, regardless of how we change this or what we do with this, if this remains an ordinance and not a resolution, is enforcement. Stan just left. But Chris.
It was opportune.
So I would just like for everyone else, because we've talked about this obviously, but for the benefit of everyone here, since we have such a large group, can you please explain how and how we would enforce something like this. If there's a board that is not doing what they're supposed to do, they're not putting the documents online, why in the world would they do what we're asking them to do if they're already not doing it based on the state statute?
Well, first of all, a lot of questions have come up on this, and frankly, we haven't had the time to go through to have the answers on any of them. But clearly, code compliance is the division of the city that deals with these kind of things. Code compliance is the one that deals with these kind of things. And, we'd have to ramp up for something like that. It would be like, yes, it's not the normal thing that code does, and Stan can pick up on this if he's got any comments on it, but code compliance is our, that's our enforcement agency to do this. And this is like the short-term rentals. It would be a new thing that they would have to be fully trained on. But I certainly don't have any answers at this time for that kind of thing.
Stan, so somebody doesn't comply, they get a civil violation, and they say to you, I'm not going to pay. What happens?
In this case, do you mean if the association does not provide us with the documents?
Right, or outdated documents, or...
Does not load them into the website, within our website?
It ultimately would be a civil violation. It would be a daily fine and penalty that will be imposed as a lien against the building.
Against the building. So, Ed, can you please explain
So
what
it'd be the
happens
common areas of the
to the
building. I guess
owners
it'd be the-
if an owner then goes to sell, specifically, to your point, senior owners that are on a fixed budget that are ready to sell their unit? What happens?
Right, the process is that a code enforcement officer would issue a notice of violation. The condo association would have 30 days to request a hearing if they wanted to. If they don't, we keep imposing the fine, and at some point in time, we go to the special magistrate and we ask him to approve us filing a lien against the condominium association. What happens then is, in the event some unit owner wants to sell their condominium unit, we will not provide them a partial release of that lien unless they pay their pro rata share of that lien. So if there's $100,000 owed and there are 100 condominium unit owners, they're going to pay $1,000 in order to get that thing released
Okay.
for their unit.
And it doesn't matter if that lien was the result of the bad actor in the management office. It falls on the owner.
All the owners.
If they want to release, a partial release of that lien.
And so then my other question, the legal question, because I've had many conversations with folks in Tallahassee. I've gone to workshops on ADA compliance. I've actually, and Senator Pizzo, who was very helpful in this, was going to be here, but he couldn't make it. Can you please explain, for the benefit again of everyone here, what that means, what ADA compliance means for the website, and have we been sued, and have we paid?
The ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act. And what it requires is for any documents that are on our website have to be fully accessible to folks who are visually impaired or hearing impaired or anything, so that they can have access to all of the documents. Just prior to us becoming city attorney, the city was involved in the litigation, and I guess city manager can explain how much it cost, but it took the city quite a bit of money in order to make sure that all of the documents that we post are accessible to anybody who has that type of a disability.
Right, so for...
And we also had to pay costs and attorney's fees on top of that.
Right.
So that whatever documents are provided to us by these condominium associations are also the city's going to have to ensure that those are also compliant.
Right, and I don't know if anyone here is visually impaired, but if you are visually impaired, you can use a computer with a reader, and the reader reads everything on that screen. So it will say Dropbox or whatever. If there's a video, it's going to explain the video. So if these documents, for instance, Winston Towers, some of them go back to 1979, 1980, they're photocopies of photocopies of photocopies. It would be, the onus would be on us to either, I guess, retype them or figure out how we would make them ADA compliant, because PDFs don't work the same way. And the amount of just paperwork that would be involved in us having to keep those records, how much would it cost approximately, Chris, to convert something?
Again, after spending
I know you
quite a
don't know
bit
for
of
sure.
time with our staff and coming up with all sorts of different numbers, I'm definitely not prepared
Okay.
to even estimate that. It's all over the place. If it's the situation you say, that takes a lot more work. If it's stuff that's in electronic format already, the print becomes a lot easier. Things like pictures, sketches, plans, and things, that's horrendously expensive
But this
to do.
isn't, but that's not what's in this ordinance, right? I mean, we're not talking,
Well,
we're
you have
talking
to comply
about,
if you're
yeah,
gonna-
but
if
we're
you're
not
gonna
talking
put it in
about
the cloud, you gotta
site plans
comply.
and I mean, we're,
Well, yeah.
but certainly, you know, there are a lot of vendors that, you know, I mean, it's not, we're not looking at a huge universe of documents. We're looking at basic information and some the most current financial records, which again, I mean, we're not digging through the trough here. This stuff is readily available to
Okay.
all of these associations.
Let the Vice
Okay,
Mayor
so
answer.
let me continue. So, to your point, one condo might have some documents, one might have 10, one might have 50. I know that I just recently received the financials for Winston Towers, and it was huge. It also shows what apartments haven't paid their maintenance. I don't know if everybody needs to know who didn't pay their maintenance besides the owners. So while I agree that we have to do something, and by the way, we were as a city very involved in writing this law, 718. They came here a few times and spoke to us, and Commissioner Goldman was very involved in that as well. It got whittled down a little bit, or a lot, but as a city, we're still very involved in going to Tallahassee, in going to DC, and helping to get these bad actors out of the way and allowing condo owners, who most of us are in this city, to enjoy our condos and not have to deal with sometimes the nightmares. So I think it's pretty apparent that this needs to be reworked. And if anything, I would perhaps support a resolution, but definitely not an ordinance at this point.
Okay, I get to go last. So probably the only job that's more thankless than being an elected official is being on a condo board. Okay, I mean honestly, it's tougher than being an elected official, I can tell you, because obviously you see your neighbors in the elevator, and when they're upset, you get it with both barrels. I mean, everybody's shaking their head and they can all relate. And my wife and I started out in a condominium, and of course we were on the we were on the board, and we got it with both barrels like everybody else. I think Ella is absolutely on the right track, her and Warren. The first time I sat with them, I said, you're doing the right thing, because the issue is people don't have an ability to resolve their disputes. This is the problem. So if you, with the commissioner from Hollandale, which she mentioned, when they drop all the paper and they give you an hour and they're playing games, if you have an advocate that you can go to and say, hey, you take a picture with your phone, and then you schedule a meeting with the lawyer, and you go and you sit and you say with the arbitrator and you say, look, they're not following the intent of the law, and so at least they have the mechanism. So while I understand where Commissioner Goldman's coming from, we have no understanding what the cost of this process would be. I agree with Max, 2 more floors on the building probably of people to basically comply, more code enforcement. And again, folks, ordinances are laws. Okay, once we pass an ordinance, we got a law on the books, and laws cost money, and there's a lot of enforcement activity associated with them. So I'm not even going to get into the nuances of it, but I asked Chris today, I asked the city manager, I said, have you had time to sufficiently scope what this would cost to enact if it got approved? He said, no, I got it a few days ago, and we didn't have time to do that. He said that he asked if he could have time to do that. And I understand Commissioner Goldman wanted to get it on the agenda. I get that. So what I would strongly advocate for at our next meeting is to put a resolution on the books and let what Ella and Warren are doing, let's put it forward. I agree. And again, Ella, the point is, ombudsman or lawyer, we're figuring it out. So we talked about it. I said you're going to be frustrated, but it takes a little patience around here, because we just can't take your word for it for your research. I appreciate the fact that you did the research because your ideas are good, but the fact is the staff's now got to go with our legal department and flush it all out and say, okay, this is our process. You know, either Ed's going to bring in a lawyer or we're going to certify one of our lawyers. They're going to be here every other Monday at 9 o'clock. We're going to have a schedule. We're going to have a process, you know, and then we have something. That resolution I would support tomorrow, I can tell you, which completely follows what you're going after. I'm not looking to put a law in the books that replicates what the state's already on us to do, and I completely agree that, you know, the enforcement can get quickly out of control, because once it is a reso, once it is an ordinance, we own it. And Stan's got to go lean the condominium. He don't have any choice, you know, he's going to have to do it, and I'm going to have 50 residents here screaming, what are you doing? You know, because that guy was the bad guy. I wasn't the bad guy. Now I got to pay when I got to lean, and so it becomes a mess. So, again, well-intentioned. I'm not questioning your intention, Commissioner Goldman. Sometimes I do, but not tonight. Well-intended, but I like what the citizens group has put forward, and I would pass an ordinance, I would pass a resolution tomorrow based on that. So in the next meeting, I'd like to direct staff to come up with a base resolution to basically pursue this. Let's pursue it, you know, and get, whether we call it ombudsman, advocate, lawyer, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the nomenclature is, but I think we all get the idea. We want somebody here on a scheduled basis that people can come in with their condominium disputes, schedule and get something and have a mechanism. And I would pay for that all day long, because I don't think to your point, the state statute considered that when they were drafting, and the fact that nobody does it, I just think, again, I think the cities have been reticent to take stuff like this on. I'm reticent to replicate what the state's already doing, because I don't think, I just think that the cost and administration of it is going to be, would be burdensome. So that I would support, probably half a loaf. But I would even like to say in the next meeting, you know, let's see if we can get something, you know, on the books and they're working on it anyway, but perhaps we can get, you know, clarity by the next meeting to have a resolution. Perfect. Yeah. Good. Good. And I would say, you know, Max, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. These guys are doing it. These guys are doing it. You know, these guys are doing it, and they're out there. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Coalition. Yeah. It's, you know, it's a pretty wordy brand, but that's okay. You know, so that's where I stand. Okay. What do we do? So, okay. So if you make a motion for it, I guess, I think we.
I don't know if there's any to defer it or to.
No, I don't want to defer it. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not in favor of it, so. I think with the portion of it is that I think what you wanted to tack on, what Ella's proposing is the piece that I want to put in a reso, because I think the city attorney made it clear that, you know, that would be a resolution, it wouldn't be an ordinance. So I'm just willing to, you know, to punt here, but Marisa, what do we have to do? So
It would be a motion to approve, and if there's a second, then we will move forward.
Okay.
If not, then the motion would fail.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
The
Okay.
motion fails.
Motion fails. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And again, man, I like when our citizens get involved, you know, I mean, I like when we come up here, we get good articulate arguments from our citizens. You don't know how happy that makes me, because, you know, all I ever hear is, we don't know what's going on. You know, we don't know what's going on. And the fact is, we can't do anything around here without, 7 public hearings and a bunch of postings. So I appreciate the passion on both sides of an argument. So that's great. Okay, we move on to ordinances for second reading. Item 9A.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, adopting the City of Sunny Isles Beach Comprehensive Plan text-based amendments related to the Town Center District, creating a Town Center South District and a Town Center North District, providing for density and intensity in the Town Center South, providing for severability, providing for repealer, providing for transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for an effective date. And this is second and final reading.
Okay, the saga continues. Here
Yes.
we go.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, commission members, Alex David with Calvin Giordano, and a former condo board member. So I feel everyone's pain. On October 17th, you voted to transmit changes to or amendments to the comprehensive plan to the state and other review agencies, which we did in a timely manner to those agencies. Typically, when there are issues, the state sends back what's called an ORC report, objections, recommendations, and comments. An objection means do it. A recommendation is kind of advisory. You really should look at amending based on their comments, and a comment is just an observation. We were not ORC'd, as I call it. We did not get any of those from the state, but they did have two little suggestions, a couple of suggestions, and we amended we amended
the ordinance
documents to incorporate some of those changes. So the first one was considering adding policy language to clarify densities and intensities. That will be part of the public engagement process that we're going forward with in the beginning of the year. They also asked us to add the word overlay districts, which we added to the documents as part of the new ordinance. And the last thing was basically the ordinance itself. It doesn't happen automatically. It's not adopted. These changes are not adopted automatically. It's a 31-day waiting period. When we hit that 31 days, then they are considered adopted by the state.
So there's 30 days for objections. So
Yes.
we're supposed to file an objection or appeal, right?
Yep.
Understood.
And I think that's basically it. So I request that you adopt these changes.
Okay. Before I open the public hearing, any questions for Alex? No? Okay, we can bring him back up if we need to. Okay, we have a public speaker. We have two public speakers. First one is Maggie Gordo.
Can I ask you a question? I didn't write my name down because we're sitting here all night. It's 8 o'clock. We start the meeting at 6:30.
Yeah, we sit here. Yeah, we sit here all night too. Yeah, it's okay.
And then Romy wants to talk. It's not fair for us to stay here until 10 o'clock.
Yeah, I have Romy's card. Yeah,
Okay, I know.
yeah. But quite frankly, we.
To stay until 10 o'clock and we be the last one because we live in the condominium and nobody care about.
No, I'm sorry, but we have an agenda that we follow. Yeah, I mean we have an agenda. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Maggie.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. If I'm here, you know what I am here for. I only care about the city and for you to do the right thing. And it is confounding to me. I have prepared statements, but before I read them, I want to ask a question. We now have the DEO itself recommending that we address the intensities and densities on the north. And my question is simply, why? Why are we so reluctant to understand that the law is that we fix our zoning before we do the comprehensive plan? Why are we not doing what we should have done in 2008? Is 11 years not enough? So rather than stand here and be rhetorical, can someone tell me? Now we have the war report that addresses this issue. We have the Crush letter that addresses this issue. We have the Waldrop report that you pay for because you didn't want to use Calvin Giordano. You wanted a third party. He had the same. Now we have the DO letter. No objections because they cannot object. Now the law is changed. But we're talking about bad board members, bad apples. What about bad commissioners? When is a commissioner not following the law? And now, who here is going to tell me the real reason why, even though we have 5 experts, and the only people that are constantly saying, don't acknowledge that the North has an intensity and density, is your city staff, and the attorneys, and the legal consultant, and the Calvin Giordano, $700,000 plan. So, which of course he's been doing a lot of years, but he didn't catch the so-called mistake. So my question is simple, and I would like an answer before I read my prepared statements. Why are we reluctant to accept what the DEO says? He says the technical assistant comment will not form the basis of a challenge, but it is offered as a suggestion which can strengthen the city's comprehensive plan. Is that the issue, that you do not want to strengthen the city comprehensive plan? What is the end game? All I'm saying to you, if you attach an intensity and density to the north, you can go ahead with your comprehensive plan, but when we have the public hearings, we will have a base. The north has an intensity, density, and just because you ignore it and you don't acknowledge it, and you have a planner that tells you you can do this, and you have a zoning director that for years told us that the overlay did not have the intensity and density of the underlying. I have read all of this. I've become an expert by necessity because the misinformation is amazing. So I understand that you all have been board members, some of you. I never, thank goodness, have been a commissioner. But I will tell you something. It's very simple. You follow the law. So I would like to have Mr. David explain to me why, if this will strengthen our comprehensive plan, you do not want to put an intensity and density on the north. I just want another question. May I? Okay, so the mayor, can you explain it to me?
Maggie,
Yes.
we've been over this issue.
I don't
Every single
understand
meeting
it.
for the last 7 meetings, okay?
Yes.
And the state also said they understand we're going to have a public process, and they were very supportive of a public process. And that's all we're doing. Again, it's a timing issue. We have a moratorium in place. Nothing can get built. That was the whole point of the moratorium. Now we got, you told me last time the state was going to reject everything we're sending them.
I didn't
Okay?
say that.
Well, you gave me a very difficult time over the state's position, and you told me that I was going to go to jail for breaking the law. So basically,
No, I would
yes,
say
when I
that
walked up to
anybody
you, yes,
that
you
breaks
did.
the law should go to
Okay.
jail.
Right.
I didn't say you,
Right.
but let me say
But my
this.
point is that
Why
the
don't
state,
you answer the question?
the state
You're
agreed.
not supposed to debate
No,
me.
because we're going to have
I
a
asked
public
a question.
process. We don't have to do it yet. We're going to have a
What
public
you're saying is
process.
you don't have to answer my question, so you're a bad
No, I didn't
board
say I'd have to
member.
answer your question, and,
All right, so I'll
so
read my prepared statement.
read your statement, and
Okay.
and I'm indulging your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Not that
I
it
know you do,
matters,
Maggie.
because it is incredible that we have 5 people here. Not of you, one of you can tell me the real reason you don't want to put that intensity there. You can't start at 0. Some of us
Maggie,
want
read your
what
statement,
it
Maggie,
is.
please.
Excuse me. Thank you. So, understand something. When we go to the public hearings, some of us will want a status quo. Others will want downzoning. Developers and some of the city staff and the mayor want upzoning. So at this point, if you go with absolutely 0, it damages us because we are not starting from the base that we should. The fact is that whether you want to ignore it or not is clear in the letter. Again, the city's comprehensive plan will be strengthened if you acknowledge that the north has an intensity and density. I will now read my statement. My name is Magali Gordo, and I reside at 16711 Collins Avenue, apartment UPH 8. And I love the city of Sunny Isles Beach. I am here again tonight to encourage you to vote no in adopting a comprehensive plan amendment which will continue the sad legacy of lack of accountability, transparency, and fair dealing, which have been the hallmark of this 3rd attempt to amend the comprehensive plan. Tonight, I am again advocating for you to stop relying on a city manager, zoning director, legal consultant, city attorneys, and a planning firm who have consistently given recommendations which have resulted in non-compliant buildings and are now recommending the amendment of the comprehensive plan without first amending our zoning code. Prior to January of this year, all of you, except the mayor, could claim ignorance of the failure to amend our land development regulations in 2008. After all, 2 of you became commissioners this year, and the other 2 began service after 2008. The mayor was a commissioner in December of 2007 and should have known our 2004 unlawfully increased densities and density in the town district were to be deleted after the city represented to the state it would do so, rather than submit the data necessary to assess the impact on our quality of life. This failure resulted in 11 years of failure to follow the law and unlawful site approvals. Other than our mayor, who else should have known? For sure, the city manager, who was hired to develop and implement the comprehensive plan and was instrumental in adopting increased densities and density in 2004. For sure, the zoning director, who is mandated by statute to ensure site approvals comply with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, that the zoning laws are consistent with our comprehensive plan. A plain reading of the comprehensive plan will have prevented the zoning director from accepting the Infinity Project site approval, for example. In addition, the city manager and zoning director assured board members and unit owners that a bridge could not be approved without landing rights on the east. A few months later, that requirement was dropped in favor of a phantom bridge with no design or final location. Another of your reliable sources is a legal consultant who was a commissioner in the first years of the city and was the city attorney at the time the comprehensive plan was adopted. And at the time the land regulations were adopted, she should know better. Another of your reliable sources is a city attorney who is accountable for doing his due diligence and conducting a legal review of the issues before us. Lastly, but perhaps crucial to our case, is the planner the city engaged since our failure to delete the unlawful densities and intensity in 2008. And no time has the planner credibly addressed to each of you a reason to ignore the law, and was unable to find the law on which he opined there was no need to amend the land development regulations overdue since 2008. Perhaps nothing explains better the lack of professional ethic than his statement in his report that the impact of the non-compliant building is not necessary because they were already existing. Please use your common sense. Evaluate that statement. A city adopts increased intensity and densities without the necessary data. The state objects and requests the data. The city agrees to delete the increased densities and density, but the city fails to amend and allows these non-compliant buildings. The commissioners of the time, not you, but others like you, relying on the recommendation of the city staff, proceeds to approve non-compliant buildings. Then our prestigious $700,000 planning firm goes on record as stating that the listen to this, the non-compliant buildings are already impacting our city. So no need for the data. Why are elected officials and city staff not interested in accountability and disclosure of the impact of the non-compliant buildings on our density? We know the mayor and the city staff are on the side of upzoning. We know that. We know why? Because the first thing they did is try to upzone unlawfully. You remember that. We know Commissioner Goldman has advocated for adherence to the law. We know the vice mayor claims she wants downzoning. We know Commissioner Lama Mother opposes upzoning and he claims not to want upzoning. Our own town district commissioner states she would like to be compliant but has voted for continuing to fail to follow the law. So I'm confused. The only question now is why are 4 of our elected officials refusing to acknowledge the lawful density and intensity of Town District North overlay? And why are city officials pretending that the Town District North has no density or intensity? It's absurd. When confronted with the competent planners report, the mayor and city staff denied they were supporting an upzone, while upzoning of the entire town district. Then the manager, without the benefit of a public discussion, engages the city's planner to study upzoning, who happily goes and does that. He, of course, complies. When that failed, the city, after declaring a moratorium, scheduled a first reading of this comprehensive plan. The city staff, with the support of the planner, recommended only one option. You were given no options. When we were in the meeting, we were told, all of us wanted to make those non-compliant buildings compliant, right? We were told there were options, and we were going to talk about it, but city staff only had one option, upzone the whole zone. So now we have a storage area there that if the developer decides that he wants to put it down and create a building with the same density and the same density as the non-compliance, that could happen. So tonight, you will vote with all the evidence necessary to determine that this comprehensive amendment should not be adopted without first amending the land development regulation, no matter who tells you. You used your common sense, read the law. So, it should not be adopted without determining the impact of increased density and intensities in our overall density projections. Each of you, individually, is going to be accountable if you do not carefully assess the evidence in front of you. On one side, you have the usual suspects, the city manager, the zoning director, the legal consultant, the city attorney. On the other side, you have the historical fact that the adopted comprehensive plan was determined to include a sentence which did not survive the first review. The city made its first attempt to review that comprehensive plan back then. But aren't you ashamed that you know that you didn't comply with the law in 2008 and you're still not doing it? For the sake of what? What is behind this? I don't get it. We gotta go. I'm not saying don't amend the comprehensive plan. I'm saying let's go with our eyes open. The North has a density and intensity, whether the planner or the zoning director want to add.
Maggie,
Did you read the
you made your point.
letter?
We're on about 15 minutes now. I've let you go. You got technically have 3 minutes.
Let other people go a lot more, but I'm almost finished.
You've made your point, Maggie.
Only 2 technical assistance items. The city accepted the overlay, but they ignored the law again when the DO said density and intensity. You are on your own, but you can no longer blame anybody else. You've been forewarned. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. Okay. Public hearing's closed. Oh, I'm sorry. I have another public speaker. Aline Sosa Perez? Sorry. Alina, I'm sorry. Yeah, Alina, of course. So.
Good evening to all. It's my pleasure to be here. I am Alina Sosa Perez from Winston Tower 600, and I'm here because I'm not as well versed in all the lingo and the technical words about this, but I'm here as a citizen of Sunny Isles, and I too love Sunny Isles. I've been here living over 25 years, and I'm very concerned about the idea of upzoning. I'm very concerned about the comprehensive plan and what's going to happen, because I really don't want the building to go on the west side. And I fear for the impact, the devastating impacts that it could have in our community. The increased traffic, the overpopulation, the loss of community feeling. And I'm here to appeal to all of you to please be listening to the desires of the residents and not of the developers. I feel like we're not being heard as we should. Mayor Scholl, you came to our building, Winston Tower 600, and I specifically asked you that night, I said, do you oppose building on the west side? And you said, yes.
I said I oppose variances and transferable development rights on the west side. I said I can't stop building on the west side. I was very clear. And by the way, I do oppose, I'm not in favor of development on the west side, but I can't take away people's property rights. That's the big issue. But since we've been in office, We've not given any bonuses or additional density to the buildings, and the first building to deal with that was the Aurora building. But in any case, I just want to be clear, because this has been brought up a number of times. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So-
But we're in your camp holistically. We just have constraints. Like I've said many times, if you have a 3-bedroom condo, if one day we legislate you can only use 2 of your bedrooms, we took away your property rights. So we have to create a balance. We have to create a balance, but this is really why we want to have we want to get
Right.
public input.
And
That's the
I
whole point.
heard Ms.
That's the whole point.
Gordo's
I know. Yeah.
concerns, and I've heard her talk about these more intricate issues, which I
Right.
have no time to get into because I'm very busy. And I think that it sounds like there are opportunities to do the right thing. If there's some of this legal stuff that's already happening, that's already clear, that can be a protecting factor for us. And I think there's ways to do it. And I'm hoping that there's an open mind about it, because I know that one can say things, but there could be some other things behind what one is saying, or maybe other purposes that I'm not aware of. But I do see, and I'm not going to be too much longer, I see the rest of the beach and I say, wow, look at Bal Harbor. Bal Harbor has tall buildings, but they don't have 70 stories buildings on the east side. And they don't have on the west side anything over than 3 or 4 stories. Bay Harbor, Surfside, even South Beach has a limited amount of high buildings. So Sunny Isles being such a small community, how could we be so overpopulated? And I really appeal to your consciences, to your hearts, to listen to the citizens of this community, so that there is a response to our needs versus the developer needs. And that's my simple message, my appeal, my desire that you do the right thing. I don't know all the details like Maggie explained, but whatever it is that can be done on her end, and what she's saying that does have merit and could help protect us, I think we need to open our minds and open our hearts to do that. And I thank you for hearing me. I hope to be involved and learn more about this issue as I go along, but it really is something that is true to my heart, and I know it's true to many, many, many citizens in this city.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Public hearing's closed. Comments? Alex?
To address what Maggie was saying, I mean, my goal here is obviously to find a solution for those non-compliant buildings. We are not voting on upzoning here for the Town Center North. That's not my desire. That's not my goal. So we're voting to separate the Town Center into 2 different areas, the south and the north, and find a solution for the south side, for those buildings that are not compliant. And that's basically it.
Dana?
No comment.
Jennifer?
I think we're speaking in again, to some of Maggie's points in these binary terms of there's the right way and the wrong way, and there are lots of ways to get this wrong, and I was horrified that to learn that we'd been doing it wrong for 11 years. It's been an interesting year as a first-year commissioner, but there's also multiple ways of doing it legally. I believe that the way that Maggie is proposing is a legal option, but also that the way that we're proceeding is also a legal option. I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, and I do believe that we're compliant with the law, and I'm comfortable with this choice.
Vice Mayor?
I agree with everything you said, Commissioner Viscara, and I do appreciate that you come every month, Maggie, because I think because of you, this resident came from the 600 building, and by the way, my mother lives in the 600 building, and I understand very well what you're feeling when you look up to the sky. What Commissioner Viscara was saying as far as legality, we are not doing anything illegal. We are trying to fix something that was wrong for a long time, and the next steps is input from the community. Because we don't want to continue making these mistakes, and we want to make sure we get it right, and we want to make sure the community is involved, because we don't have that much space left. So I'm thrilled to see so many people here. I hope they're here because of this or for whatever other reason. And please keep coming back and come to the workshops when we start talking about this. Thank you.
Okay, this is one that we've been over many, many times now, so I'm going to keep it short. But the fact is, we passed a moratorium to basically stay any development. And that was clear. And, you know, I got accused of, I want this approved, I want that approved. None of it was true, I can tell you. And like, you know, there was a big smear campaign here. But the fact is that, you know, we came across this anomaly. We realized we had this issue with the 6 buildings. We had to come up, you know, Maggie's right. The first recommendation was just to basically treat the whole town center district like the interpreted zoning of the 6 buildings. That obviously didn't go over well, but that was the first recommendation we got. And frankly, in the past, not a lot of folks ever paid a lot of attention to these issues, and that kind of created the firestorm, and I would say, you know, saying we were all advocating for an upzoning was a misinterpretation of what we were trying to accomplish. You know, unfortunately, when you're sitting on that side of the dais, everything looks nefarious. Everybody thinks we've got this hidden agendas and all these things we're trying to do. Frankly, we're not that smart. At least I'm not that smart. Maybe some of my commissioners are, or my colleagues are, but I'm not that smart. So the fact is, then we realized, okay, what could we do to address the 6 buildings? So we split the town center zone, and we split it. And Maggie's right. You know, I would say the only ill effect of basically completing the South Comp Plan and the zoning there could be the potential for the public storage building to get torn down. That's a big public company. I'd be surprised if they ever sell, but I guess that building could get torn down if they could meet the setback requirements they could build there. But beyond that, everything else is largely owned by the city. The synagogue owns the piece of the lot, and then you know, all the rest of it are buildings that are already built. So again, you know, we take these, when we're trying to create arguments, we take these situations and we abstract these situations, and then it gets even more and more confusing. I would say at this point, Maggie, you are a much better expert than I am, I can tell you. But the fact is that I think, as Jennifer and Larissa pointed out, there's a lot of ways to approach this. And I guarantee you, if we got 3 more sets of experts, they would come up with 3 more ways to approach it. So we picked a way, but we picked a way that said, okay, people are concerned about development. Let's put a moratorium on it. You know, everybody was accusing me of wanting to pass the Infinity Project. If I wanted to do that, we wouldn't have put a moratorium on, okay? I'd have done exactly what Dana Goldman wanted to do, which was just complete the ordinance, and then the folks can come back through and, you know, and then they can reapply. But the fact is, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to slow everything down, you know, fix the 6 buildings, create a public process, and go from there. And really, like I've said in the meetings in the past, you know, it's a difference of how we're approaching it. So I'm glad, at least, I feel like, you know, to the staff's credit, when it went to the state, they turned it around quickly. So it wasn't, the state could have sat on this for 3 to 6 months and not given us comments quickly. They recognized the vulnerability of the 6 buildings, and they turned it around quickly. So I appreciate that with the state, and the comments, as we said, were de minimis. So with that, hopefully that'll put at least the South to bed, you know, after we get the second one done here tonight. So I will take a motion.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mauricio.
Vice Mayor Svechin,
Yes.
Commissioner Viscara,
Yes.
Commissioner Lama,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldman,
No.
Mayor Scholl.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted.
Okay. We move on to 9B.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, amending the City of Sunny Isles Beach Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map amendments related to the Town Center District, creating a Town Center District South and a Town Center North District, providing for land use designation amendments for the properties located in the Town Center South, providing for severability, providing for repealer, providing for transmittal to the Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for an effective date. And this is second and final reading.
Alex.
Good evening again, Alex David, Calvin Giordano. This was a very difficult fix, obviously. We had to add the word overlay to both the Town Center North and Town Center South designations on the map, and that was it.
Okay, so that's the only change?
That was the
Okay,
only change,
excellent.
adding
Okay.
overlay to both of those new sub-districts.
Okay, thank you.
And the effective date.
And the effective
I'm sorry,
date,
and the
correct.
effective date, 31 days out.
Okay. Maggie, do you want to speak again? Okay, thank you, Maggie. Okay, public hearing is closed. Any comments? Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mauricio?
Commissioner Viscara,
Yes.
Commissioner Lama,
Yes.
Commissioner Goldman,
No.
Vice Mayor Svechin,
Yes.
Mayor Scholl.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Let's take a, do you want to keep going? You want to take a little, is everybody good? Okay?
I don't know if there was a Rumi
Yeah.
saying, okay.
Yeah, I've got your card, Rumi, but was it an item, you didn't put the item down? Was it, did you just want to speak at no, I'm just saying, yeah, this is you, but there's no item. Okay, at the end, okay, because I can't go out of order.
Okay.
Because-
No, I know.
So no
she's
break.
just-
Yeah, no break.
Perfect.
Let's just, there's only 3 resolutions, so, and a couple discussion items, so it should go quick now, so, okay, item 10A?
A resolution awarding request for proposal number 19-10-012 and entering into an agreement with G Concrete Development, Inc. for the Bella Vista Parkway construction.
Okay, Richard?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, staff, City Manager, City Attorney. What you have before you is a resolution to award a contract to G Concrete Development to rebuild the dock at the Bella Vista Park. As you know, it got destroyed in Hurricane Irma. We have FEMA funds to do some work on it. The permit agencies want us to get all the submerged materials out of the way, so this will allow us to clean up the area and rebuild the dock system the way it was.
Excellent. Any questions for Richard?
No.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Item 10B?
A resolution approving the reappointment of members to the Public Arts Advisory Committee for calendar years 2020 and 2021.
Okay, I think it's pretty cut and dry. I have a public speaker. Max, did you want to speak on this one?
Thank you very much. Sorry for not properly,
Yeah.
Sorry for not properly
Sorry.
greeting you the first time. This
all
is
right.
my first time. This is my second.
No worries.
So
You-
Mayor,
you
Vice
did
Mayor,
well.
the commissioners, and other distinguished members of the panel. Thank you very much for your attention. Speaking of on this subject, I believe that the city obviously has lots of things to do, and I see that things are being done. However, there is one thing that is probably taking the priority over just about anything, which is human life, human safety, and human health. And I believe
Okay,
certain
Max, I'm sorry.
ramifications- Yes.
I'm sorry. You said 10B? You said 10B, so we're talking about the PAC reappointment? Is
Yes, I'm talking about the committee, the advisory committee,
For
which
the
I
arts?
have no intention.
The Citizens Advisory
Oh,
Committee.
I'm sorry, okay.
So that's
Okay,
later.
Okay, that's 12B.
Okay,
not
so shall I
10B.
wait? Because
Yeah,
you
if you don't
called
mind
me.
waiting, so we can
All right.
start, okay, I'm sorry.
So I
I'm
may
sorry.
continue?
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Um,
No, Yeah, if you don't mind waiting, let us just get
No,
through the rest of the
absolutely.
agenda, and I'll call you
Absolutely.
back
Thank
up.
you.
So, okay. Any discussion on the reappointment of the PAC members? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Item 10C.
A resolution approving an interagency agreement with the Miami-Dade County for the use of criminal justice software.
All right, Chief, what do we got?
Honorable Mayor and Commission, this request is for the approval of an interlocal agreement with Miami-Dade County Police Department to utilize their criminal justice database, which gives us the ability to access FCIC and CIC and their local criminal justice information, which gives our officers real-time information to be able to do their jobs out on the street.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, that's it for
Thank
our resos. Thank you, chief. So we got our discussion item, item 12A, banning the use of glyphosate. Vice Mayor Svechin.
This was on the agenda, off the agenda, back on the agenda. This is an item that has been discussed a a lot in the news, on social media. Commissioner Goldman wrote a piece about it. This is actually supposed to be both of us talking about it. Basically, this was a discussion about banning it in our parks, and in talking to staff about this, we found out that that's already in our contracts. We do not use this when we are landscaping in our parks. Just today, I know that there was some social media buzz about a petition and calling the news to talk to us to get this done. We got it done. So I wanted it as a discussion item because there was a resident that was so happy she was planning to come here to say, you guys really need to do a better job of letting people know that you're doing a really good job. But she wasn't available because of the holidays. So I appreciate Commissioner Goldman writing that article, and I think that this was a priority for everyone, especially anyone that has kids. So that was it.
Great.
So for me, I raised this issue several months ago to Catherine Matos and staff because I had been approached by one of the NGOs, maybe the Waterkeeper or the city of Miami actually passed an ordinance banning glyphosate product throughout the city. And that's not just public, but that's also private area. So I approached and said, hey, you know, what are we doing in our public parks? And there was some question. I just want to make sure that we currently do not use Roundup or that glyphosate, or at least our landscape artists are not using that product for the benefit of the health and safety of obviously our children and our playgrounds, right? So I guess we vetted that out, and so since I made that overture, then there was an inquiry into our two major landscape companies to, you know, find out what products are they actually using. So this is important and relevant that our contracts really have that prohibition in there. So that's a question of enforcement. Of course, there's this separate issue of what do you do on private property, and hence that was the genesis for that article, because one of our condominium developments actually had that discussion and had that implementation to say, in our condominium, we've already made that switch, will others take that as well? So in my understanding, this is not a discussion to say we are regulating private property. It's more about what we're doing on our public spaces. Is that correct?
Right. So that's exactly right. What we have control over and what we have already been doing because it's already in our contract. Definitely not private property because we can't regulate private property. And
well, the city of Miami did it.
I believe that's not correct.
Has it been challenged, or do you know of anything?
Yeah.
I'm sorry? So the city of Miami, they have a wholesale. Don't they have a
No,
wholesale?
they don't. Because
they just say we ban it in public spaces?
in their parks, yes.
Okay.
I think it's pretty hard to enforce it if they sell it at Home Depot.
Right.
It's a problem.
But
So,
we can set an example
Yeah.
and do it on public property.
Yep.
So I
and
think it's a great
and it's done.
great way of doing it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 12B, appointments to CAC. Who's going to initiate that discussion? Stan?
I can start us off.
Okay.
Mayor, at this time, I don't have enough appointments to convene a quorum for the CAC.
Okay.
And as part of that, the secondary discussion is I was provided a recommendation that's not from the list of applicants.
Okay.
So I discussed this with the city attorney, and we went back and reviewed the resolution, and it was very clear that you directed us that the appointment should be from the list.
Right.
So it's really a two-part discussion, and the commission needs to direct us as to our next steps.
Okay, yeah, I think individually, I mean, I don't think that I responded to you yet, unfortunately, because I've been busy, but, so I think, I still think that we should follow our protocol, but before we talk, Max, did you want to speak to this? I think it's the item that you had, so public hearing's open.
So on the subject of Citizen Advisory Committee, in my private opinion, and I was basically starting to bring up the topic of pedestrian safety, I tend to believe that this would be one of the matters that could also be handled independently, maybe by a citizen committee that is not an official committee, but rather an initiative group, because through my communication with several persons in the panel and the chief of police, which I have the privilege of speaking to, I realized that due to certain limitations and rules that
Sunshine Law.
limit you
Sunshine
in the
Law.
ways
Right.
to be able to achieve the result. While I'm very certain that all parties are interested in achieving this result, being the police, the city, and the commission, I do believe that we have a serious issue with pedestrian safety in this city, and it will require major joint effort to improve it. The accidents will inevitably happen, but preparatory work will certainly limit them and reduce them, and that is something that I would like to just give you a few examples of, and I may even have one solution, which again, I'm not a professional, and a way that certain technical things are resolved and need to be resolved, but for example, I observed on numerous occasions that vehicles entering major roads from driveways normally look for other vehicles moving on those major roads and very rarely check for the safety of pedestrians. Right. It's a very simple solution, and that is possibly within the city ability to achieve, would be to put speed bumps at the exit to the sidewalk on the border of the driveway. At least this will prevent the driver from, while making sure that there is no oncoming traffic, instead of speeding, slow down. Because I saw people just jumping out of cars where the driver would look the other way. We do have some other things. I know that the police department is working very hard to regulate and enforce traffic rules. However, certain things like signage and other traffic-related solutions are not within their discretion. This is Department of Traffic, so that is state level. That then is the commission who on request by the community, has to petition the state legislature and get these things done. So in short, certainly it is great that Ella was here and she has already dipped herself in the issue of condominiums, and I'll be happy to assist in that group if needed. But on the separate issue, I would certainly volunteer to work in direction of trying to coordinate and gather support and come up with some ideas, which certainly then will have to be left to professionals to implement.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Thank you. Okay. Okay, public hearing is closed. Any other discussions regarding the appointments? I think we probably just each have to take it offline with Stan and get it done.
Actually, I have some comments because Max, by the way, this is the first time that you've been here. You've done a lot of research, and you know yourself. Very articulate. I appreciate that. And so I go back to the statement I made before, which was to really get something done, it takes someone like Ella, who put together a private committee, and Max, who seems very motivated as well. So that's why I hesitated and did not. It's not because I forgot. I really struggled with this because to appoint people that want to do something like Max, who sought me out in May.
They get hamstrung by our rules.
And then we tied, not we, but their hands are tied, then you're just wasting their time. To appoint people that just want a title, well, that's silly too. And Stan and I have had these conversations, so I don't know if I would agree to even move forward with the CAC.
Okay. Any other comments? Jennifer?
Well, I've made my position clear in the past. I was the chair of the CAC for several years. I believe that the CAC, as currently structured, and even now, with the new regulations, the new structure with the list and all this, I just think that the CAC in the current structure has outlived its purpose. Like this Roundup, what is it? What's it called? Glyphosate. It's a perfect example. right? Like somebody has an idea, it's a good idea, it's a genuine concern. The city's already on it. We have the privilege of, we're not perfect, we're far from perfect, but we're a very proactive city, and that was the issue that we ran into at the CAC. And by the way, you don't have to be on a committee to bring forward ideas.
Right.
You can come up here, you can reach out to the commissioners. It doesn't have to go through those formal channels, although, we also said that the CAC functions as a training ground in helping you talk, resolve issues through sunshine, if you're interested in running for office. But if you just want to be a good citizen, you don't have to be on the committee to do that. Having said that, I also felt that, well, if there's this interest and we can actually make it happen, then give it a shot. But frankly, I still think that going to project-based committees is would be more effective. You're not going to be bound by the same rules, and you can have like-minded people working on one subject, pedestrian safety being one of them, for example, or as Ella's group is attempting to do. I just think that's more efficient. But I don't oppose it, but I'm just not optimistic about it.
Got it. Alex?
Okay, I think we should give the CAC another shot. Okay, we have to take into account that we have 34 people that applied for it. I know a few of them. They've called me incessantly. Well, not incessantly, but they called me a few times asking what's going on with it. So I do have a couple of people in mind that I could perhaps appoint. So I think we should give it a shot. And going back to our last conversation regarding the CAC, I think we discussed, having the 7 members that are subjected to sunshine, and then the other ones, we're looking at, if they wanted to also be involved, they could be involved, but not be subjected to sunshine law and not have like an official title. So, I believe we should give it a shot. Whatever form it takes, I think we should give it a shot, whether, we include just the people that apply for it, or we include people outside of it. I really don't care. I think, if people want to help, they're going to help. And, we should take a look at it and continue with the CAC or give it a shot.
Dana?
So, Stan, if we had because I've had additional inquiries since that list was generated several months ago. So what you're saying is we're not allowed to make appointments outside of the original list? That seems a little confining.
Well, I think that was the deal we made. I think that was, but that's what the commission said. We said we're going to solicit applications, and then we're going to pick from the list. I actually haven't seen the list to pick from. Maybe you sent it to me. But
Is that
I
in the
probably missed it.
original resolution?
Yeah, that's when
that
we debated this like 5 months ago, whatever it was. That's what we came up with. We said that we're gonna basically because again, this is a tweener. This is a tweener, because I agree with you, because I also, before I was a city commissioner, I was involved with the CAC, and it's hit or miss, it's very issue oriented sometimes, but sometimes you're like just digging for issues, almost you're like trying to create activity because the city's on a lot of things. So I don't disagree with you, but I also feel like you came up through it, I came up through it, Alex was on it. I mean, it's a good farm team, It's kind of like, it gets folks familiar with what we do here. And then if you want to run for public office, at least then you have some familiarity with working with staff and everything else.
So when you say we agree to, it's in a resolution that we agree to that everybody who we appoint has to be on the list?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was, as I recall. Yeah, that was about 5 or 6 meetings ago.
That was September.
September, about 3 meetings ago.
Yeah, it was that everyone was going to appoint from that list of 34.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe,
Now, but,
yeah.
Mayor, I'm sorry, but you can always amend that.
No, I know.
I'd move to
amend.
I'd like to move to amend that requirement.
Well, it's a discussion. We're not.
Okay,
it's not
so
a
I'd like
resol-
to, if we're going to discuss it,
So-
I'd like to, have that, some fluidity
Yeah.
to that and move to amend.
So, okay, so let's, so I think what we'll do is, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what's going to be key for the CAC to work is got to be objective-based. I mean, we pick 3-4 issues and make sure that, those get, seen through from A to Z, and make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, people that are
It's just easier said than
participating.
done.
I know it's
understand.
easier said
Yeah,
than done,
it's just
but
idealistic. You know,
Yeah.
no, I get it. I don't disagree with you, and I know when I was on it, and I watched Dana as well, and I watched Jennifer. I mean, you know, we poured our heart and soul into it, and we were in it, you know, because we were trying to create value with it. You know, the irony of it is with the list, and this is how I interpreted that reso that we did. The list was, I mean, if you have somebody that you want to appoint, you tell them to apply.
Right.
And, you know, nobody kicked anybody out for applying. You know, they apply and then they're on the list. So I don't think that the list itself was prohibitive. I think that, I think that the mechanism, I understood the mechanism. What we were trying to do was create, you know, some criteria for folks to apply and to have like a little bit more formality to it, to maybe because I remember we had a big discussion.
But if I may
but-
chime in
Go ahead.
on that, that criteria already existed.
I know
we
it did.
We just weren't
I know
using
did.
it.
But just to be clear, we had a big discussion over are folks really interested and how can we make them more interested and can we make it more, have it more gravitas? And we remember this was like, you know, we went through all this and then, you know, and I think in real time that was our conclusion.
But
so-
in that spirit, what we said was we were looking to maybe we had a discussion about whether staff would make those appointments, and then ultimately we went back to the original
Yeah.
ordinance that said, you know, we're going to have our different picks. So
Yeah,
that's why,
that's right.
you
Yeah,
know, perhaps, you know, we have to
So
make that initiative to.
I tend to agree with Alex to give it one more go. I mean, and then let's just look at the list and make our picks. And if you've got somebody that wants to apply,
Yeah,
so
we
just,
want to get some
just
other
tell them to apply.
applicants.
That's
So
all.
we can
So
modify that list. Basically, we can open up the
if we-
list.
Can we just open it up for 30 more days? I guess we can't do it now because it's a discussion item, but I guess.
The list is not shut down.
No, the list isn't shut
Meaning
down?
the
Okay,
website,
good.
you can, it's ongoing.
Okay.
I think we had put a deadline on it before, but frankly, if we're going to be just perpetually amending the list, there's no point in the list. I just think
I understand.
just
Yeah.
get
All
rid
I'm
of the
trying to
list.
do
We
is-
can just get rid
No,
of the
look at,
whole
all I'm
list
trying to
and
do
go
is,
to the
hold on,
CAC the
all I'm
way it
trying to do is
was.
move it forward without another resolution right now.
Can we,
because
yeah,
can't,
can we
because we're
get
not-
that list open
know,
for
yeah.
another 30 days,
Yeah.
please?
So, and
There's
is
no
there any
harm or
problem
foul.
if we add it to the list?
What I would recommend
Yeah.
is that we go ahead and amend the reso to take out the 34.
Yeah.
And then, which we can do at the next meeting, and you can appoint at the same time.
Okay.
And that way, we're not losing
I
a
understand.
meeting.
Okay.
Because
So that way.
you're going to
that's
have
good.
to come back
So
next
basically,
one
proffer
to
your names.
appoint.
At the next meeting, it will kind of clean it up retroactively, is essentially what
Okay,
I'm saying. Okay?
that's fine.
So, good. Okay. Okay, I got, that's it for, now we got citizens forum. I got 3 speakers. We're in the home stretch. Keith Oliver? Keith, you're patient, and so the gift for being, so the penance for being able to speak is having to sit through the meeting, to your point earlier. So I understand. Yeah. I'm trying to make light of it, that's all.
We'll
So,
come
go
late.
ahead. Keith, go ahead.
But Keith Oliver, Tropicana Condominium, 15645 Collins Avenue, and Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, tonight I'd like to speak a little bit and say, since moving to Sunny Isles Beach 15 years ago, one goal was to create a community butterfly garden for my wife's hobby of raising butterflies. The new Gateway Park Butterfly Garden is open, and I invite anyone on the dais to meet me for a 20-minute plant names and garden tour, and also the public. Go down there and enjoy it. The city really did a good job of making it world-class this time. So another goal was to create an Asian cultural festival and also a sister city. Your open door policy is great, and your evening with Hung Chun was a huge success. The event included a local honey producer, a display of over 100 orchids, free Taiwan Liquid Center and cold bubble tea, hot tea and dumpling making exhibits, Master Sang's Taekwondo performance, and Master Sang is in Rush Hour 2 and 3 with Jackie Chan, so he did a good job up there. Also a lion dance, Asian dancers, and musical performances, ending with the powerful taiko drummers. So whoever didn't come to the end, they missed a good show at the end. And I know everybody's busy, so they didn't get to walk around as much. But it was interesting to know that the reviews of Hung Chun Evening circulated through Taiwan the day before Mayor Liu departed. So now, Sunny Island, as it's known in Taiwan, is even more well-known. The ceremony in City Hall was also a delight and a success. However, the airplane arrived late with the New York Taiwanese professional erhu player, Andy Lin. Mr. Chen and I co-sponsored Andy, and I was picking him up at the airport. We missed a good cocktail party, and feeling rushed, we arrived 1 minute before start of the ceremony. For this reason, I'd like to restate my appreciation to all that contributed to the program, and again, share some information. Our United States President Eisenhower founded the Sister Cities International Program in 1956. The program was created at the White House Conference on Citizen Diplomacy. Mayor Scholl, thank you for this continuing international relationship in perpetuity. I hope Sunny Isles Beach will continue to recognize our Asian cultures with an annual festival during Asia Pacific Heritage Month. I'd like to thank Susan and Sylvia for the amazing coordination they have achieved. We appreciate the assistance from all your staff and Dade County Asian American Advisory Board members. My wife and I really appreciate everyone from TECO that has supported this relationship and brought the Fisher Island students to sing the national anthems in Mandarin and English. We appreciate all the beautiful singers and musicians. A special thank you goes to Mr. Thomas Chen, our World Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce Senior Advisor and CEO of Crystal Windows in New York. Thomas was born in Pingtung County, Taiwan, where Hengchun Township is located, and was supportive from the beginning. My wife, Yvonne, and I love our city, our country, and also Taiwan. 10 years ago, Fang became a dual citizen of both countries and took her American name of Yvonne. With tears in her eyes, she said it was one of her proudest moments. Also, 10 years ago, Yvonne was invited and designated to represent Sunny Isles Beach as ambassador to Asia. Yvonne reluctantly accepted. Since then, as an independent business owner and advisor to the World Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce, she has introduced and promoted Sunny Isles Beach to Asian communities throughout the U.S., Asia, Europe, and South America. I'm proud of her many accomplishments. Yvonne sends her love and had previously committed to attend a dance class tonight. Thank you for listening, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and best wishes.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, Jeanette Gatto.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners. Jeanette Gatto, 230 174th Street. I'm here at the request of a resident interest group. We're in no way, shape, or form a committee, but some of the women approached me. They wanted to talk about some issues with the parks, know how long I served here, and so we just sort of informally got together. Just to name them all, it's Rumi Grozdanova, Rocio Lama, and Fabiola Stuyvesant. So I just wanted to give like a really brief report on what we talked about, and then maybe make a couple of requests, and maybe that could get on your radar, if it's okay. One of the things, or a couple of the things that I thought is in the good news column is that everyone pretty much felt that the parks were very clean and very well maintained, and that security was not an issue because there was always personnel there. So I think that those are really important items for families to consider, and I think it sounds like the city is really doing a great job in that area. The other thing that they felt was important was location. Rather than any kind of specific amenity in a park was key to which park they would attend. And Mayor, that kind of dovetails into your longstanding philosophy of a park and walking distance in every neighborhood. So it's kind of a good thing. And also available parking was very important to everyone. We pretty much have that everywhere. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about some key comments. And one of them I think is really, really important because we've all noticed it. And it has to do with the amount of dogs that we see in the park and on the beach, and especially on the beach. Because I think people who go to the beach and put a beach towel down don't want to sit down and find a surprise underneath that, if you kind of know what I mean. And they just seem to be more and more. And I think we have a lot of visitors and we have a lot of new owners and new people here that maybe don't realize dogs aren't allowed in the parks and dogs aren't allowed on the beach. So I don't know what the answer is to that, but maybe we could, or I could ask for your help to see if we could get some sort of public service thing out there and let everybody know as a reminder, please, no dogs in the parks. There was also a suggestion for more water fountains in the parks, maybe where there's one, maybe two. I understand there's probably issues with water lines. I'm not an engineer. I don't know if that's something that's difficult to do or not, but wanted to put it out there. Another suggestion is more team events, which actually I've noticed there's been an upswing on that, so that's good, actually. It seems that, and you guys don't need to know this, our K-8 kids are getting older, and they're teens now, and they need things to do and places to go, and a suggestion was maybe a clubhouse, or building a clubhouse in one of the larger parks. Again, just putting that idea out there. And then, if possible, if we could get some more recycling bins, or actually, maybe that's a question I have. I don't really know if there are any recycling bins out there at all, but Vice Mayor, you had mentioned there was some issues with contamination with recycling bins. And I'm not an expert, I don't really understand all of that, but, the people are out there, they're drinking with their water bottles and Coke cans, and so it would be really helpful to have some more recycling out there. And lastly, one of the members requested, if it's possible, to have maybe one of the parks open at 10 o'clock instead of 9, only during the summer. And there was a discussion about Gateway being underused. Maybe that would be the one to go with. So again, putting it out there. And then just two sort of off-topic items, not really related to the parks, but sort of. There was a request for more doggy bag stations in the city, and if possible, a map of the doggy bag stations. Doggy bag stations are a really good thing, not only for the doggy people, but for us, we feel we don't have dogs, but we can feel safe and secure. It's getting picked up and disposed of properly, so the more the merrier. And lastly, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, because I think it was thrown around back in the day, but for the city to establish a hotline so residents could call ask for questions or provide suggestions or complaints. Of course, you always run the risk of crazy crank calls, so that's probably not anything that'd be palatable. But I think we have, now that I mention it, something on our website where people can write
And they
writing questions
They
and
write to
stuff?
us or call us individually,
Yeah.
or they call the hotline. They call.
So we're probably
Yeah.
okay
There's actually
in that
There's actually a
area.
line there, yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to report back and let you know what our discussion was. And again, really the only big issue is if we could do something about preventing so many dogs on the beach and in the park, it'd be really, really helpful.
Well, if we put a lot of doggy bag stations in there, we're going to be in trouble, right? So that's kind of, but the doggy bag.
Better
'cause
we
have
have
on
them
our
than
island.
not.
Yeah, but it's true. I noticed like where I live on Atlantic Island, there's not a lot of places to walk dogs, so there's a lot of people walking dogs on my island all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
but we have a doggy bag station, so that's the good news,
Yep.
In ours, so.
Yep.
Good.
All right,
Okay.
thanks a lot.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, last but not least, Rumi, okay? Now, Rumi, be nice, okay? Be nice. So, Jana, I'm telling her to be nice.
That's why I'm the last.
Okay.
Well,
So-
we'll see about that, so.
Okay, I want to say thank you. And I'm gonna start with Mr. Russo. Thank you for the stone on the 185th Street, for the street. Thank you so much. Now,
It's
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, it's okay, it's okay. I wanted to clarify. I took,
okay, I'm gonna tell, thank you
just
for
let me-
everybody,
yeah,
because he has to be.
I took credit.
It's a
for
team
it, but
effort.
It was
We'll
actually
give them
the
both
city
credit.
manager that
It's a
did
team
it,
effort.
so.
I have a double thank you because you was the one for the yellow color of the house. I never going to forget. Anyway, I gonna remind you. Thank you again. That is the start. We are not forgot. Golden Shores. Now the lights. We have more things. But I gonna say something. I will appreciate I tell one time, or Larissa, or whatever, why, look how many people are here. Not enough. No. Why? Because 24 hours on the email, have a meeting, not everybody think about which this week or next week. I think supposed to be reminder for the meeting, commissioner, 2 weeks, not 24 hours, because everybody has to make arrangement. Not to be empty. It's not nice. How you can hear the people when they know from before they're going to make some arrangement. But
Rumi, I just want to mention to you, we do put it out earlier. In fact, this week, I personally went to our media people to look up your email address to make sure that we were sending it out. And I think it was it Wednesday? No, it wasn't. Yes, it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday around 5 or 6 p.m. that you should have gotten, I might be off a little bit, your reminder.
no, but Tuesday is not
So
enough.
Rumi, to be clear, the commission meetings are the third Thursday of every month. That's
Okay.
easy. So it never changes. That's always been the third Thursday of every month at 6:30. So that's pretty, so we don't come up with the date, we don't come up with the time for the commission meeting on the fly.
Yeah, but to have more time, I think it's much better.
Mayor, may I?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm a little
I've
confused.
spoken to Remy about this at length, and as we know, she knows when the meetings are, because she comes.
She's Rumi.
But her point being is that most people are not paying attention to that.
Yes.
So she has asked
Yes,
if we
I'm
can
not talking
please
about me.
send
I
it
understand.
Talking about
on
to have
Friday
more
when we
people.
have the agenda, Friday evening. That was her request, and you and I talked about it. So that's, she's asking.
Now,
But she's allowed.
okay.
Go
I
ahead.
want to say, because many people talk about the safety, and Mrs. Goldman supposed to be for fix the traffic, but I think one of you guys or two, you have to go when the kids going out from the school. I don't think you can believe it or never been to see how is from Publix.
I've been,
No, how is
Yeah.
from this 2 street
Yeah.
and from here? No, this is scary. Has to have a light. No, over there is a no rule who is going to be the first. In the everything else, walking people from the buildings. This is very danger place. Until somebody get killed, you're gonna realize. The kids, they run. In so many cars. And if have a lighting, everybody know, oh, now it's green, it's for me. But when it's nothing, everybody wants to go first. And you have to see from Publix. Anyway, the kids, the parents in the public parking is full. But one day I was waiting half hour to get to the street, not to get on the street.
yeah.
This supposed to have a lighting to make a control who has to go straight or this is not the way supposed to be. That's scary over there. And I think if I have to take probably to come to the street, but to watch only to see. If you see 1 or 2 days looking, it's gonna be very, very. I don't want some people to think about, I have no kids. I have granddaughter, but 28. I'm talking about in this school. But it's not safety for them. And not healthy for us to waiting 45 minutes because somebody has to put the light. Who has to be first? I don't want to repeat myself. I don't know why I have to ask this question, but make me aware when the commissioner from Hallandale was first on the bench to speak. We have now together Hallandale and Sunny Isle.
No, but she's a public speaker. Anybody can come in and speak.
I understand.
Yeah, it's not
but
just for
she was
residents.
the first, and I'm
Well,
from here,
she-
I'm the last.
Yeah.
The issue.
Well,
You
that,
know
because
what I
you didn't speak on that item, Rumi, just to be clear, that she came, she put a number on her card and said, I want to speak on 7C. So there's a stack of speakers on 7C. She spoke on 7C, and then everybody else spoke on, we go in order and we label them. So unfortunately, and I understand your issue, the Citizens Forum, what I'll try to do next time is, to your point, is that if we have a couple folks for Citizens Forum, maybe we'll try to move it up, and that way they don't have
I
to sit through the whole meeting.
understand,
So, no, please, yeah. Yeah. Well, but that's how it, unfortunately, that's how it goes. People are very issue-oriented.
But for
But the good news
example-
is, after the meeting, if you go on our website, you can pick the issue you want to watch. So if you don't come to the meeting, we have a lot of technology, Yeah, I understand.
I want
understand.
to come and
I
see
agree.
you guys.
I'm not arguing with you. No, I like when you come. I like when everybody comes. But the fact is that we've got a very transparent, process with
I know.
televising our meetings and after the meeting, and so, but people come for certain issues, and I'd love for more folks to stay for the whole meeting, but when the meetings are long, they don't want to stay. Believe it or not, in some municipalities, the meetings go to 1 o'clock in the morning. So, I
understand.
Alex is shaking his head. Miami Beach, I've been at meetings that go till past midnight, and same thing with City of Miami, Hallandale, she's shaking her head,
But
yeah.
Miami Beach is
I know.
huge than here.
Yeah.
We are
So,
small city.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be more easy with no complication.
yeah,
But we do have.
yeah.
But now, I'm not from the condo, but what I heard from the people, I'm just asking question. Because the association, you have to take care of the association, all these buildings.
Yeah, that's what we decided not to do. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because
that's what
the state,
really-
yeah.
Yeah.
But what we decided to do, that we're gonna, we didn't vote on it today, but we'll put it in the next meeting, is to have a state-trained lawyer, or like an arbitrator, so if you have a conflict with your association,
So
you
it's
can
not
come
going
and,
to be
and we'll have
from the
like,
city.
like, we'll have like a magistrate, like a little court,
Yes,
like a
but
little, yeah, that's it.
It's not from
No.
the city.
No, that person will be independent,
No,
but
because
the
that is
city,
gonna be a money.
but the city,
I prefer to
but,
fix something
no, I
else
understand.
in the city.
But the city will assist in that process. The city will assist in the process and schedule it, because, let's face it, I live in a house, but we have 18,000 condo units and about 500 houses. So this is a condominium city. So I agree that we have a responsibility to help the condos when we can.
Yes,
So,
but I think
yeah.
everybody need to have some privacy. For example, how she said, has to have a record, but every
Yeah.
condominium do background check. Nobody, doesn't matter under
Yeah.
the rent or buyer, they are not going until it's not proved.
You know how it is,
from-
Rumi, whenever there's money involved, bad people, every once in a while, you're going to get bad people involved. Every condominiums, these are big buildings with big budgets, and every once in a while, not everybody's bad, to Alex's point earlier, we've all worked on condo boards, and we've all done the right thing, but not every condo board is run by people that are doing the right thing. However, there's state laws in place for that. And then at least what we believe we can help is if there is a grievance, we can create a mechanism to help folks, deal with the grievance. But we didn't agree with recreating, the state,
Do not-
what the state's
but I
responsible
like
for.
what she said about their problem. I
Yeah.
like it, because now they have no problem, right?
Right.
Very important, who is in the association.
On the board.
Why?
Right,
Because my daughter lives in condo.
yeah.
They're all like a big family.
Yeah, that's good.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's good.
The
Doesn't usually work that way, but that's good, yeah.
That is
Yeah.
amazing.
My mom's building in Hollandale is good.
This is
Yeah,
very, very important, the people.
yeah,
But they don't have a like to talk each other behind the back,
yeah, yeah.
which is very important.
Yeah, that's good too.
But
Yeah,
I don't know. She's
Yeah.
right. They have no raise on maintenance.
yeah,
They don't have a
yeah.
everything
Yeah,
what
it's fair.
they do
It's fair.
is very straight.
Yeah, that's good.
I can tell probably because most of the people are Canadian. And I can tell you, they're very good,
Yeah,
very
Yeah.
good.
yeah, they're careful fiscally, yeah,
And,
that's good.
but I'm not agree if I live in this condominium and the association turn around what she
Yeah.
says, the financial,
Yeah,
everything has to be record. I have to turn my
yeah.
income tax. No,
yeah,
that's not gonna happen. Because the way how she said was scary for me. Sounds scary. Driving, of course, background check,
Okay,
yes.
okay, Rumi, we turned it down, so we,
No,
basically, we're not
the
doing. yeah,
background
there's not-
check,
Yeah, there's no
yes.
discussion on that one, so, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead. So,
I can discuss. You cannot tell me to not discuss.
so, all right, all right,
No,
all right.
you cannot tell me to not discuss.
So,
Because I just repeat what you say. And you,
okay, let's not debate it. It's a dead issue, and we all want to go home. So, Rumi, go ahead. You have the floor. Go ahead and
Okay.
finish.
I know,
So,
and she know.
so, it's okay.
I don't like
So-
the political games.
Yeah.
People to play.
Yeah.
To get their own interests. That's why it's the problem. When they play own interests, that's the problem. But to accuse the other people, they think the people are
Yeah.
stupid,
Yeah.
but not. Thank you.
Thank you, Rumi. Have a great night. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.